All right, welcome back, everybody. We've got some more Carthage Esports, but this time we got a little something different. We got the WIHSEA semifinals here for League of Legends. Here we've got Kimberly versus Mount Horam. Going to be finding out which of these teams is going to come out on top, progress towards the finals here. Going to be a pretty interesting game considering this is the 1 versus the 4 seeds. Kimberly is going to be the undefeated team coming in, only taking 1 loss during the preseason, which could, a number of different things. It's a whole game change, all items change. Got a ton of champion changes coming in that preseason patch. So really, we haven't seen a lot of adversity, my goodness, here for this Kimberly squad against Mount Horam, which has lost a game. Sorry, my goodness. Already off to a fantastic start here. But they came in 4-1. So we're going to see here which team's going to come out on top. A couple of things to look for. Just coming off of a very big patch here for League of Legends. A lot of changes made. So it's going to be interesting to see whether they stick to what Pro Play considers meta, or if they stay towards what solo queue considers meta, which could be some big differences here. A lot of new picks. For instance, Milio was dropped, so that's going to be a new support pick that could be even pick or ban, so very high priority on that pick. We'll see how much both teams decide to utilize that. I'd say that's a pick to look for as far as in draft, something that they could utilize as a top pick in the league. So we will see here. Not a lot of information about both these teams coming in, so it's going to be interesting to find out what their draft strategies are, how they like to play the game, whether they want to pick more slow team compositions, look to play for late game, or if these teams want to play fast and they want to get hit the ground running with some action in the early game. It'll be, once again, very interesting to see here. Just waiting for draft pick to start. Yeah. Just going to go a quick break, just wait for the draft. Looks like we're going to have a couple of issues, but we will see you back with the draft soon.
The high Wheaton shoves that right over to the Lions half. Looks like this one's going in. Oh, are you kidding me? Don't over behind. We're going to see the barrage. The barrage.
Oh my gosh, Nico is just dominating right now.
What a play!
That's disgusting.
Oh my gosh.
That was disgusting.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Going to pop right into the draft here. If we could get the screen to show here. First ban is going to be the Hecarim, a very potent pick, especially after you get the introduction of Youmuu's Ghostblade from a legendary item to a mythic item. Very strong champion, has a lot of agency in the early game, and also scales decently well considering how fast that pick farms on the jungle. Also, Pantheon is going to be another ban here, just a 4-way flex. You played in so many different roles, you don't really know where it's going. Very potent early game champion. Seems like a lot of the bans so far are just going to be focusing on these picks that are going to be looking at influencing the early game, except for now we see the Zeri ban also coming in. That's going to be more for the late game. You're looking to stop this team from scaling out of control. So just mitigating all this variance almost. A lot of dynamic picks. See, Caitlyn Luxban, that's a very popular combination paired together. It's an incredibly oppressive lane duo, able to take down these tower platings quickly and able to amass a ton of gold in the bottom lane. Now we're going to see what this third ban is going to be here for WIHSEA Esports. Going to be the LeBlanc. See, not surprising here. I'm going to be getting rid of a lot of different early game picks. It's a lot of things that could just completely run over the game early. Now we see the Lilia picked up. I really like this pick. Finding a lot of buffs in the last couple of patches. It's going to be something that can just vacuum up the jungle, find a large experience advantage very quickly. Also extremely potent in team fights. But this Olaf pick is something I'm going to like in response. That ultimate coming out can, in fact, immune CC. So if she does decide to use the sleep on you, then you're able to cleanse it immediately and continue to fight. Warwick is a pick that you're not going to see too often. Another jungle pick. Decent into Lilia one-on-one, but once you get into those team fights, it's incredibly difficult to play. So definitely a more early game focused composition coming out from Mount Horam. Whereas you see, or apologies, Kimberly, Horeb, and you see now Mount Horam, Horeb. My God. I'll get it one day. Got a Lilia and a Janna. So just trying to peel. So far, loving this draft out of Mount Horeb. Got it that time. Seeing the Lilia and the Janna. Janna in particular going to be fantastic into this Olaf and the Warwick. And also, Janna, one of the strongest enchanters on this patch. Just a very good pick. Oh, and the Xayah as well. They are really, really slotting into this team fighting style, playing more towards that middle and the late game, and focusing on peeling off that AD carry from any sort of aggression that his team could show. And now they're drafting right into it, picking the Akali, an assassin who could be good. Once you're at level 6, you're roaming around the map, you're going to be making a lot of plays. But into this Janna Xayah lane in the bot lane, it's going to be very difficult to find picks in that mid to late game once everybody has their items and ultimates online. So we're going to see what kind of turn this draft takes right out the gate. Once again, Mount Horeb, fantastic draft. They have exactly the tools that they're going to need in order to counter what Kimberly is trying to do. The GP ban, I think solid ban, although it looks like what Mount Horeb is trying to do is go for more of a front-to-back team comp. So they're going to want some bulkiness, some tank in the top lane. But once again, in these leagues, it's very important to ban off of comfort and try to get players on picks that they're not as used to playing, because that is how you find advantages. Once you find that discomfort on these high-pressure games, that's how you can find advantages across the map. Going to see a Jhin ban now as well. Jhin, good into Xayah and Janna. Also sets up a lot of the plays that they're trying to make with these early game champions, in particular the Warwick, able to lock down somebody with the W. Also, Nasus, good ban, I think. Good into the Olaf. Solid into essentially everything else. It has good peel as well, scaling into the late game. And now we see they just grip and rip the Kog'Maw. Very good pick. I mean, not a lot of tankiness that they're going to be shredding with that Kog'Maw, as we know, percent max health damage, sorry. So very good into these tankier picks that Mount Horeb could be trying to go in the later stages of this draft. But they need to find a good enchanter to pick with it. Lulu is still open. Milio, shockingly, still open here. Two very, very strong champions in the meta currently. So really just be a matter of which way Mount Horeb is trying to go. Cassiopeia picked now into the Akali. Good matchup, good scaling. It seems like it's very on point with what they're trying to pick so far. Now the Alawi, another champion, likes to get walked into, but terrible, in my opinion, into this Kog'Maw Lulu, which is going to be the main issue going to late game. Although, with that pick, it does kind of mitigate any sort of super strong advantage that Mount Horeb is going to gain. Depending on where these two champions go, the Alawi and the Cassiopeia could be very, very strong. Absolutely. Cassiopeia could be going in the top lane as well, but I kind of doubt it. I almost would prefer the Cassiopeia matchup into the Olaf. Alawi is good into it. But it also allows you to be able to punish the Akali for making these roams once you get out of laning phase. So far, giving the draft advantage to Mount Horeb. Although the Kog'Maw Lulu are good into the last few picks here, I would still consider this core of the Janna, the Xayah, the Lilia, as just too good into this Warwick, Olaf, and Akali. So now, just going to be setting up a little bit of stream delay. Going to be giving us 2 minutes, 30 seconds to make sure that no funny business is going on. So we're going to cut to a short break, get back to you with some wonderful WIHSEA League of Legends. right, welcome back, everybody. Getting right into this game now. I've got a fellow co-caster with me. We've got Coach G. You want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm really excited to cast this game with you. My name's Coach G. I'm the head coach of esports at the University of Wisconsin River Falls, and I'm super excited to be here and watch the Wisconsin High School Esports Association Spring Championship at Carthage College. We've got a lot of great talent from throughout the state gathered here today, and we're already getting some action in the mid lane as we see, the competition stack up here between Mount Horeb and Kimberly. You asked me during the loading screen which team I thought won the draft. I want to point that back at you, Nat. What do you think about this draft? Which composition do you like playing out more?
My analysis in the draft was that I liked Mount Horeb's left side draft here. I liked their draft better. It looked like, at the start at least, that they picked the Olaf, they picked up the Warwick, and they had to walk into the enemy team here. We got a little bit of action now on the bot side. Some very good trading level, too. That's going to be very big advantage here for Kimberly's bot lane. I mean, it's big, especially to find this advantage against the Janna, able to zone her off wave. She's a little bit weak early, especially in this Lulu, who can be actually quite oppressive into most enchanters. As I was saying, though, I really liked the Xayah and the Janna pick, in particular into the Olaf and the Warwick, even the Kali, so much too. Even though this Kog'Maw and the Lulu are very good into most champions, they outrange essentially their entire comp, I still felt like Mount Horeb left side comp is better.
Yeah, to me, I just feel like it's such a draft blunder, and we see how it played out at the level 2 to give over the Lulu with the Kog'Maw. That's a classic bottom lane combination. You see it time and time again, especially Kog'Maw lately on this patch. I mean, his damage output is just bonkers. This guy can start building tank legitimately after 2 items, and then you talk about the wild growth on top of that. We're going to see frontline Kog'Maw potentially.
Absolutely. And they do have a lot of damage, but maybe potentially not enough to get through this frontline that would be the Olaf and the Warwick, and then find their way onto the back line. A little bit of gank there going on the top lane. Is able to get away, though. Test of Will not getting enough damage down to threaten any sort of kill.
Yeah, and we see no summoners burned, so I think we're going to see Kimberly consider that a success on their part, kind of take their money and walk away. And we're going to see here in the bottom lane, the Xayah just using abilities, farming up, trying to hold this wave at their tower. They know their jungler is topside, pathing down toward bottom for that scuttle. And we'll see what happens here as Warwick is finishing up that Krug camp. Is he going to visit top lane to put down some pressure on that Alawi, or are we going to get an island in the top lane?
I would almost expect that, at least for Mount Horeb, they would want to keep that an island, whereas you'd really want to get the Olaf ahead if you're Kimberly. You want to find a way to slow down this Alawi from pushing these towers. Wow, really silly test of will there. Just grabbing him with the tentacle.
Lollipopped on him right there.
Oof. Did find not too much damage, though, so he's still kind of fine in this lane. Now pushing forward, though, he's got the Conqueror, he's got the gank. This might be a kill of first blood here for Kimberly. There we go. As we were talking about, trying to find some kills in this top lane, an advantage, and that is huge here for that Olaf.
But an equal and opposite reaction on the other side of the map. We see the gank coming down. That's when the junglers, they're pathing in opposite directions, as we saw, and Lilia able to trade back on the other side, picking up the Lulu kill. And that is going to give away some lane pressure, but the star of the show there is Kog'Maw, so the fact that he was able to maintain his life and pick up this wave means it's not too brutal. But on the top side, very keen eye from the Warwick there. Leafwig doing a great job of noticing, like, okay, the wave is pushing into Olaf. We could probably get one off here before I go ahead and recall. You hate to see your jungler just kind of take Krugs and then reset.
Yeah, absolutely. It would have, especially with how that lane was pushing, it would have been a travesty if the Warwick didn't visit the top lane there. Very good opportunity found there, by Leafwig to find that kill. But once again, as we were talking about, almost more advantage found on this bot side, as these are where the carries are going to be on both sides, especially getting a kill on Lilia. That's massive.
Yeah, and it's all about gold allocation in these games, right? It's not solo queue where, it's a disorganized environment. One character can kind of pop off and carry the game. We're really looking to see how the teams play around their centerpieces in the draft here. You've got a lot of scaling on the side of Mount Horeb in that Cassiopeia pick. The Lilia is also an immense pick, and we're seeing the gank here on the mid lane onto Old Croc. This could be pretty deadly, but we see Leafwood coming in on the Warwick, trying to scare them off, but unfortunately, look at him just getting roasted.
Having to flash there is a massive blunder there for the mid laner of Mount Horeb Esports. Very tough, especially once you see This Akali's level 6. This Warwick is approaching level 6. You're going to need some sort of mobility to get away from these two ultimates. It's going to be very hard to play around that. That's an advantage that I would expect Kimberly to try to leverage going into this dragon fight.
And Mount Horeb just trying to push in that wave, get a reset off for their mid laner, and that's going to end up being probably an expenditure of teleport on both sides. Unfortunately, the Warwick did take a lot of damage, but he's going to be able to sustain through that. I think he thought his damage reduction on the E would be a little bit more advantageous there, but my goodness, the amount of damage coming out from the Lilia and the Cassiopeia there, it's going to be a big threat going forward.
And now we're going to see the beauties of Summoner's Rift here. Really, the polygons on this map, fantastic.
Now, I think what they've done with the flora here is really great, befitting of springtime here on the lake. And one of my favorite parts of Summoner Rift, it really is the towers. We've done such a fantastic job of seeing the towers evolve over time with plating and making sure that things like lane swaps don't come into play. So we get this 2v2 action in the bottom lane with the Kog'Maw getting some gold into his pocket.
If we wouldn't mind, quick call to the tech person here. If we wouldn't mind trying to find a way to click on that directed camera button there or something, because we got a frozen camera here. But anyways, Kog'Maw getting the kill there. Talking about game state, that is huge.
Yeah, and with Kog'Maw right now, looking at the item changes in 1310, that's been a huge boon to him. He's been pretty irrelevant in the meta for a long time, so to be able to come back in a big way with Enchanters being so strong, Echoes pretty much being a super buffed version of Athene's, it creates a situation in which, like, oh my goodness, it almost looked like we had a surrender there. But neither team will be giving up that early. Going into the bottom lane, we're really seeing all of the detail that goes in and around the rift. But there we go, bone plating taking down on the Alawi. Maybe Olaf can get off some more trades there.
Absolutely, yeah.
He's got plenty of mana, but he probably doesn't want to push too far up without knowledge of where their jungler is.
Absolutely, especially with the lead that he's created for himself with the help of his jungler. Ravenheart, great solo kill to find there. We were talking about earlier how this Olaf just wants to snowball this lead, create pressure on the top side, and now we're seeing it. Although he has that priority, it may not matter. We have Lilia coming here. She does have ult, but it looks like the Olaf will have an ult in return. He's going to trade back a lot of damage. Could just click the altar and get a kill. Having to flash away is the Lilia. Still running, picking it up
my goodness.
with the undertow. Running back now. 2-man ult in the Cassiopeia here. This is a big gold swing. We're going to see Old Croc now trying to find the solo kill. It looks like he will pick it up, having to flash away. But still, very nice couple of kills back there for Mount Horeb.
It feels like Kimberly kind of was able to scrape out an even trade there, but really unfortunate on the side of the Akali to have to give up that flash. I feel like that was a panic flash. There was no way the second shot of that turret was going to take out half of their HP bar. On the top side, though, we see it. Olaf, when he gets in that comfort zone, he's 30% HP or less. He's in Ragnarok. He is the danger.
Oh, absolutely, especially with the rework several patches back with how his W now is not only going to give that Omnivamp, but also the additional shield based on missing health. He becomes an absolute weapon once he gets past that, as you said, that 30% threshold. Red team going to get the dragon here. Kimberly going to find that nice pick. Another one may be found with the Warwick ult coming in, but no, the Lilia is trading back. This Lilia is actually huge, just running all over this team fight, but no, still going to be a 1-for-1 with the dragon going over to Kimberly.
And I think there what we see is Kimberly with a great use of tempo. Tempo is a word that gets thrown around a lot, but basically it's your ability to dictate what is happening on the map, to set the pace of the game. And when they notice, okay, top lane, our Olaf got taken down in a 2v1 gank, let's try to pressure bottom side. Let's get that first dragon on the board. Let's start stacking. Let's play around our Kog'Maw.
Yeah, and once again, as you said, Kog'Maw, star of the show, already getting a lot of gold, but now they need to find a way to push that advantage in the bot side. Xayah is a very hard bot lane to move. They have a ton of disengage. Xayah, of course, with the self-peel in her ultimate, and Typhoon from Janna also, obviously, getting a ton of healing, the knockback. It's incredibly hard to get kills on this post 6, let alone looking for a tower dive to really find some sort of serious advantage. So I'm going to be interested to see what they try to do here. Leafwig now walking into 2. Doesn't look like he's too interested. Maybe just trying to pick up that steal. Does not quite find it. Now you see the Alawi ultimate comes down, and that's a pickup for Cassiopeia. That's another big one.
Oh, you hate to see it. As a jungle main, I've been there before. You hate to give up
Oh,
anything on the map, right? You feel like an absolute beta if you just watch them take the Rift Herald and walk away.
Oh,
but
wow.
at that point, there's nothing you can do. But we see Olaf here. He's not going to back down from anything. We even get the TP from Akali. Old Croc coming in. Probably didn't need to do that. He's a little loose on the summoner usage today. But at the end of the day, Olaf squeaking back something out of that, as a Leafwick just kind of gave up his life in exchange for the voyeuristic Herald pick.
No, I completely understand what you mean. I play jungle as well, and it does just feel bad to have to give up. You see your top laner, he's there. You can walk over. But in that case, you do just kind of have to say, man, got to cut our losses, have to find plays across the map. One thing I did want to talk about is this Lilia pick so far, finding a lot of angles, and although we can't see at the moment, probably up in farm, considering how slow Warwick's clear is. So how do you think they're going to try to utilize this pick going forward?
So with the Lilia having such an advantage here, the clear speed and everything, I think that they are going to be looking to make some picks. There's not a ton of synergy in terms of the way they engage. They really want the other team to walk into them, as you pointed out, with the Alawi, with the Janna. Lilia can kind of be that person who fishes for picks, rolling it down the lane with her bowling ball, the seed doing a ton of work. But I think she would also be comfortable waiting, sort of poking, having them to walk into her. Now, here's the problem. We see the bottom lane walking into her right now. Her sleep is up. She's not going to use it on the Akali. They're just going to disengage. They do not want to fuss with that Kog'Maw right now, as it's around a 1.3k gold deficit in the favor of Kimberly right now.
Oh, yeah. Especially with that current advantage, good idea to just walk away. But something I've noticed from Kimberly so far, they are making a lot of proactive plays on the map. But because they're doing so, they're dropping a ton of waves mid and bot. So although this Kog'Maw does have an advantage, and now we're going to see Janna just unfortunately caught out. Very tough circumstance there. Luckily, Zai is able to get away from that gank, but good find once again by that Warwick. They're over pushing. And as I was talking about, of course, dropping these waves, they come down and pick up a kill instead. So,
and that's one that feels really bad. They only have 2 wards in river, sort of at that mid bush, as well as a pink in the river bush in bottom. And that control ward, Kimberly walked right over it, but it was just too late at that point. You have the speed buff from the Lulu. You've got the Warwick turning on his speed buff, hunting for blood. And it just ends up at the point where, kind of like when you're playing against a pick like a Rammus or something, right? By the time you see them on the ward, it's too late. So they probably need to look into pushing in the river more, getting more vision, and playing safer on the bottom side. It looks like they really want to play for top side here, but Olaf is not having any of that. He's not going to let his side of the map be the weak side.
No, especially with how successful he has been in this game, I can't blame him for pushing forward and looking for these other advantages on the map. Next one, of course, being this dragon, which is going to be coming up in about a minute, given the indicators here. Who do you think is going to be looking to get there first? Do you think that Ravenheart is going to want to come down? And furthermore, who has the advantage here coming into this dragon fight?
So if I were them, you can really hold off on the Drakes at this point, I think, until around 3rd Drake. The problem is, what is the value they got out of this Herald, right? They took the Herald, and then it's just been Lilia fishing for sleeps and not getting anything out of it. Dropping Herald to break first tower here might work and get you some value, but it's too far before the Drake. I wish they would have coordinated this more with their bottom lane. Right now, though, they should be running to Drake. They should just take the tower, run the Drake. And it feels like they're kind of split on the call.
Yeah, I completely agree. It seemed like, although they couldn't really decide whether they wanted to grab that mid turret or go for the dragon, instead settling for the mid turret, but now getting this reset, they should have ran immediately there. They should have at least tried to burn this teleport, which would be coming up, but they're playing it a little bit too slow here, even with the scaling comp.
It's the worst of all worlds, really, right?
Yep.
You get the Herald, you don't get any plates with it, which would have been great value, especially top lane for that Alawi. It would have made it so that instead of potentially giving up first tower top lane and snowballing the lead for Kimberly a bit more, Mount Horeb could have been in a position to recoup some of that gold and put Alawi in a stronger position. Now, in this long lane versus Olaf, those undertows are going to be terrifying. The moment he hits one, as you saw there, forces a flash.
Yeah, it's going to be extremely tough for this Alawi to continue to pick up these waves. They're going to need to find some way going forward to deal with this Olaf, as well as usually the main problem with these split-pushing champions like the Olaf, like the Alawi, is that it's such a bot-centric meta. You really need to be going and grabbing these dragons in order to win the long game. But he's getting the best. He's getting the best of all worlds. He got his turret. He's isolated this Alawi in this lane, and his team has now picked up these first 2 dragons, really pushing for the sole point early on in the game. It's going to be tough for Mount Horeb to find a way back into this game.
Now, here's the classic split push mistake. And maybe, he feels fine. He's feeling himself. He knows that if he's in a 1v2 situation and gets low, he's going to be able to at least trade 1-for-1. But he does not have any vision in that blue side jungle of Mount Horeb, and that's going to put him in a difficult position in the split push. Lilia should get this cleanup kill.
Oh, yeah, a lot of healing coming through. Might actually find it, but no, the burn is going to be enough. Big shutdown on this Lilia, and she has a lot of gold allocated on her so far. Enough to where I'd say they should start moving this bot lane up and even looking to contest this Herald.
Yes, this should be definitely a bottom lane, move up, swap with the Alawi, and pressure this second Herald. She's out of the play, though. I don't like what Leafwing is doing here. Leafwing is taking it way too conservatively. He's got the Cog Lulu there. They should be going on Herald right now. When Lilia has 300 HP like she just did, she's effectively dead, right? She cannot contest that Herald in the river, especially when your bot lane is in the mid lane. And this is a really classic move, right? You take the bottom lane, you move them to the middle lane, and now you have this pivot point. Also, Cassiopeia is just going bonkers here on the Kog'Maw, and I think he was a little overconfident, feeling like, I have the Lulu in my back pocket, I have that wild growth, I should be able to just solo her.
Yeah, absolutely absurd amount of damage out of that Cassiopeia there, and that's going to be an omen for things to come going forward into this fight. And just as we talked about before, it almost feels like despite this lead that he has in the top side, how is this Olaf going to get in on these team fights? You have the Xayah ult and the Janna ult, which we already talked about, but also Cassiopeia ult that you will have to, one of those at least you'll have to burn that ultimate, the Ragnarok 4. So it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to move this Olaf around the map and to ideally, and maybe instead of affecting team fights, try to push for these towers.
Yeah, they still are in a great position. It sounds like we're being very critical of them, but 3,000 gold ahead at 19 minutes with 2 Drakes is a position of power. They can really dictate where they go on the map. But like you said, the Olaf is going to have a very difficult time in team fights if they choose to try and straight up 5v5. As we move forward into the game, we know that, Soul Point is coming up in a few minutes. We're going to see Baron spawn here shortly. And right now, Cassiopeia in the side lane struggling against the Akali, but Akali not able to finish it off. Just the sustained DPS of the Cassiopeia, too much for her.
Yeah, monstrous DPS, as we just talked about. I felt like right as she used that perfect execution, the Akali would have been able to go in and find that kill, but that miasma absolutely devastating, just keeping her grounded, not able to dash forward, and then obviously the sustained DPS is just too much for the Akali there. Now looking for a Herald play in the mid lane. They do pick up a pretty effective macro play there. Grabbing that mid turret will be big, especially with how much damage. My goodness!
The twin fangs coming out, and that's one of those moments where Akali is probably frustrated, right? Because she dies in the bottom lane, and she's like, I can't do anything. Cassiopeia just spams E on me, right? And then Cassiopeia just saunters up the river, no boots or anything, hits one miasma, it's the poison, the Q, the Noxious Cloud onto the Lulu, and then just twin fangs her down.
It's just too much damage here, and despite the fact that we've seen these short bursts where the Kog'Maw has gotten the buff from the Lulu and forced Mount Horeb back, that is not enough to deal with this Cassiopeia. They're going to need to find a way to put this Kog'Maw in a position to where he's both out of range of the Cassiopeia and in effective range of the rest of the team and out of sight of this Lowy as well, because that slow from the Test of Will is very difficult to deal with.
So they have Baron Vision. Olaf checking with the Undertow just to make sure they're actually recalling, interrupts all of them. Here, they do have some pressure they can put on the map, but we see Old Croc going in, being aggressive. That Monsoon coming out from the Janna to create some space, but Xayah is frontlining at the moment, and Kog'Maw is punishing her for that, wasting the ultimate. He's got the wild growth on him. He's going wild. Cassiopeia, though, she knows she's massive. She drops the miasma. She's landing the Twin Fangs, but Old Croc is decimating her backline. Xayah is out of the fight after using that ultimate early, as Kog'Maw was just running at her menacingly.
Man, very good fight there. I mean, that is the absolute perfect place to be for most of the champions here for Mount Horeb. Alawi loves these fights where you've got the enemy team walking into you in these small corridors where you cannot avoid this. Really good engage, though, from Leafwing. Might find a kill, but no, this ult from the Cassiopeia could find, again, turning back. This is such a back-and-forth fight. The Ragnarok coming out, but it won't be enough. Alawi picking up a double kill.
And that's just one of those situations where they identified the right target at the wrong time. You do want to kill the Cassiopeia, right? However, you cannot let Alawi in a choke just slam you. That's what that was. She was just welcome to the slam, all right? And Kog'Maw here is now trying to push up mid lane, get that prio again. They can look for this soul point Kim Tech Drake, but it is going to be a challenge in the river. We see Mount Horeb at a point where they are so strong, they are wanting to take every single 5v5 they can.
Absolutely, and this is exactly what we were talking, like what I was talking about at the start of the game. Despite the fact that this Kog'Maw and this Lulu has the advantage in lane, you don't really have an effective team comp to play around it. Yes, the Akali will be able to get on the back line, perhaps below the Featherstorm, and maybe even the Typhoon, or Monsoon.
I think it's Monsoon.
Monsoon. But it doesn't end up mattering just because they don't have enough tools to peel this Kog'Maw. The Kog'Maw might trade 1-for-1, but once this Cassiopeia, once the Lilia get on top of him, it's essentially over. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play out this fight. I really feel like Mount Horeb wants to get on this Drake first.
Yeah, and Ravenart does have the teleport. He's pushing in top lane. Here, honestly, if I was Kimberly, I would give this Drake, and I would just take mid and top tower. Trade 2 towers for 1 Kimtech Drake.
Yeah.
That's a great trade in my book.
Yeah, absolutely. And that seems like that's what the call is. They are going to take this very good macro play. Chemtech Drake, while it is extremely good for Lulu, one isn't going to end the game for you. Whereas having these 2 turrets, I mean, you all of a sudden have so much more playroom on the map to move this work around and find picks. Very, very smart heads-up play there by Kimberly.
Yeah, and that's just understanding you don't have to run it down for these Drakes. As much as we think the Drakes are so important, giving over 1 Kimtech Drake, actually not an issue at all. The key thing is, though, we're at that point in the game, if a single member of Kimberly gets picked off, particularly Leafwing, it could spell a very fast Baron on the side of Mount Horeb. The Twin Fang from Cassiopeia we know as melting champions. It will do the same thing the Baron. And then Xayah with her E, pulling back the feathers, has a ton of execute damage on the Baron.
Yeah, so the objective control absolutely going over to the side of Mount Horeb. I feel like they should be on top of every objective from here on out, just because despite the gold lead, it is still extremely hard to play these fights. And as long as you get there first, once again, that's the important thing, because you can't be walking into people as an Alawi, as a Janna. You really want to be sitting on the objective, forcing the enemy team to contest you. But if that is done, then perhaps these advantages in lanes won't even matter that much.
And Kog'Maw, just heads up, we're keeping track the Kog'Maw watch.
Yep.
He does have 2 items now, close to finishing that 3rd. Meanwhile, Xayah on the side of Mount Horeb, only sitting on a completed Storm Razor, right, with components for the 2nd item. That is brutal. That means the DPS advantage is so starkly in the favor of Kimberly. However, Cassiopeia, we know, is more than putting up her share of the work in this one.
Absolutely, yeah. That is an even bigger advantage than we thought had came out of that bot lane. All the tower plating and those 2 kills, I believe, given over to the Kog'Maw. I mean, 3 items to 1, that's an undeniable advantage there. What do you think the next move here for Kimberly is going to be?
So with Kimberly, what I would love to see, and it looks like this is what they're trying to do, is send the Olaf bottom lane. He still has teleport. Ravenart hasn't really had to expend this teleport, so if we can have him put down the pressure on the bottom lane and then keep getting mid prio, right? And then be in a position where you can move around. It seems like they're actually moving into mid with Ravenart. I really feel like he should just be on that bottom lane island, can easily get that tier 2. Who is going to contest that? I don't think Alawi is still at a point where she can straight up 1v1 the Olaf.
I completely agree. I was kind of surprised almost that Mount Horeb didn't just start that Baron. I believe that they saw Warwick moving from vision from the minion wave, going down and checking that bot jungle. Especially with Akali there, despite the teleport being up, they would be able to find an advantage just by that alone. So I was kind of looking for that proactive, fast decision from Mount Horeb to start that Baron and start a play, force Ravenart up to the top lane, force Old Croc up to the top lane and start a fight.
And see, this is the problem right here. They do not have that go button. So them playing that angle right outside the blue buff entrance isn't going to be advantageous. What they want to do here is try and get a pick on the Leaf Wing, but like you're saying, their real threat is just starting the Baron. Once they start the Baron, they force Kimberly to walk into them, and then they don't have to worry about the fact that they lack engage.
Yeah, that goes for both teams, actually, now that I'm looking at it, because it's not like the Olaf really wants to be running at you. As long as whichever team gets to this objective first, they will have the advantage, and it's going to be hard to find a real engage for both of them. Although, if you can find the Miracle Lily ult, you might have something. Leafwig now, really fantastic play here on the bot lane. Finding that pick. Now you can either go up to start that Baron right away, or just put more pressure on the map. They have a lot of options off of finding the Alawi there.
Yeah, they could easily 1-3-1 this. Kog'Maw just picking up that mid wave, chilling, letting the Olaf push. We do see, though, Lilia moving toward bottom side. This is dangerous for them. If I were Warwick, I would start the path more toward that top side, because if Lilia goes to pick up that wave, that could have been a Baron start for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So despite these picks that they are finding, it is still very much walking a tightrope for Kimberly trying to find these advantages on the map. It will be very tough to try and get that bot lane tier 2 because of this, once again, because of the threat of the Baron start. How are we going to both play towards the Baron and play towards this bot tier 2? They're going to have to choose one eventually.
Yeah, Cassiopeia has around 3.5 items right now. The core of the build is done with the Seraphs, the Rylais, the Leandries. So she is always going to be able to carry these team fights if she's in the right spot. But with that being said, it is a 4,000 gold advantage for Kimberly at 28 minutes. And there you go.
Wow.
Just face checking. Very hard to do. At this point in the game when you're playing an Enchanter support, you don't have the ability to just walk in the river like that and lay down vision. You have to have the buddy system. Your jungler needs to be with you. You might want to have Cassiopeia in your back pocket. And now we see Soul Point acquired. They are one Drake away from that Kimtech Drake, which is not as broken as it used to be, but still more advantageous than some of the others. I think in Riot's design vision for the map, they really see like Kimtech and Hextech being just a little bit stronger than the other 4 Dragon Souls. But here we go. Will we finally see them bait the Baron and try to make a play here to force some sort of big game-deciding fight? Really, though, they might just be pulling some pressure away from Ravenheart, though, so he can get that tier 2 tower down in bottom lane.
I mean, they can play this game for as long as they want, essentially, at this point, with no threat of something else being traded back with the Dragon. Now, once forcing out this teleport, they have a lot of room to make a lot of very good plays here, opting to 1-3-1. I think one of the most safe ones, especially with this massive gold lead that you've accrued. As we saw when the scoreboard popped up, 3,000 gold lead in the bottom lane alone. It's going to be very tough for this Xayah to find herself in some good positions.
Now, Splashba, he is feeling like he can just do whatever he wants right now. Very strong on that Kog'Maw, so we'll have to see how this plays out with his positioning. But this Baron is getting shredded, and Lilia smelled it. She knows something's going on. Will she contest? This looks like it's kind of doomed.
Yeah, nothing they can really do there, especially with the lack of vision. They had to either commit to pushing towards that bottom lane, like we saw Kimberly do earlier. You have to either just commit. Oh, no, now they're committing to this fight. I'm not so sure about this one. Going in now is the Warwick, finding himself on the back line. Really good Monsoon, but they have so much damage. Surprisingly, the ultimate now coming off from the Alawi, finding a couple of tentacles in very good positions. Shut down for the Cassiopeia. Just too much damage here for Kimberly. Old Croc now on the run.
Yeah, and you saw Lilia there go for the hero play. You thought it was going to be a flash Q into a 5-man sleep. Unfortunately, just gets insta-gibbed. However, on the backside of that fight, I think Kimberly thought they were much stronger than they were having killed the Lilia. However, Alawi and Cassiopeia saving the day once again for Mount Horeb. So we only see one Baron buff live on the side of Kimberly. That is a good trade for Mount Horeb at the end of the day. Unfortunately, it's not going to recoup a lot of gold in the short term, but it gives them a ton of map pressure, and it puts them in a position to maybe get some of these bounties that are on the map.
Yeah, that's really the only thing you can look for here are these map plays, are these bounties. Now, thankfully, you have a lot of gold sitting on the map here, a lot of towers still up to be taken. That is something that they should look for next, although it will be tough within the next few minutes of this Baron buff. it has felt like within these last couple of fights that maybe it's target prioritization that has been the issue here for Kimberly, because they are initially absolutely smashing these fights, finding 2-3 picks, but then it just gets down to, it seems like very consistently, this Alawi and Cassiopeia, which they just don't have enough damage for. The cooldown's already expended on these other targets.
Well, and that's where we see the fact that Mount Horeb, they want to dig their heels in and fight on one spot, right? The Cassiopeia and the Alawi will thrive. Even the Xayah, if she's able to live a bit more and get a bunch of feathers down, that's going to be huge for her. Whereas Kimberly, they need to be kiting more. They need to be shifting the field of battle just a bit more than they are right now in order to prevent sort of sitting in the DPS of Mount Horeb.
Yeah, I mean, I think a perfect analyzation right there. Just a matter of finding a way to put these, the main carries, which are currently Kog'Maw and Olaf, in the right position. Something I haven't seen so far is too many effective flanks from Old Croc, something, once again, that he could look for potentially to find his way onto the Alawi, although it's really a matter of if he's even has enough damage to kill the Alawi with a full combo. Cassiopeia with the full combo, being 2 full levels up, and with an ultimate, it's a very real possibility that this Cassiopeia will just be able to laser down Akali before she can get all of her damage out.
Yeah, I don't think Old Croc can really look for anyone here except Xayah and Janna, which is extremely difficult to do due to the nature of their ultimates being inherently for peel. So Old Croc, I'm not sure what the Conqueror Akali really does in any of these fights, except hope to maybe get off a good Zhonya's, but I'm not sure if he has that completed at the moment.
Yeah, now we see maybe a drag start coming out very soon. While we do see Kimberly having the advantage, how will Mount Horeb try to walk in here? I mean, I have to expect that you'd be looking with the Lilia to try and kind of poke and prod, trying to find space, and now it's all just been given up. So very, in my opinion, pretty big blunder there by Kimberly, not just taking that space immediately, finding a foothold in these chokes to try and stop Mount Horeb from walking through before they can find, as you said before, just one single piece of ground to stand on.
Yeah, that was very interesting for Kimberly to have prio in both mid and bot and then just concede the river. But I think Olaf was calling for a buy there, so they might want to take this fight still. I think Olaf was able to get off a big purchase on that recall, and they might be considering this something that they can take. If not, we will just see them rush the mid lane. Mount Horeb has completely conceded this mid lane in exchange for that second Drake. We're getting another teleport forced out here. Probably the Cassiopeia. Yes, it is. That's going to be your best hope at clearing this with the Miasma, with the Twin Fangs. And we'll see if Kimberly can get any more pressure on the map. But they're really in kind of like a holding pattern. They're not able to exert their force like they were before. I still don't think we're seeing them try to pressure that bottom tower enough with Olaf. Ravenheart has not gotten any value out of his teleport. Even just then, before that Drake fight, we saw him take that back right as Mount Horeb was going into the river, Leafwing with a really random Warwick ult. I don't think even if he lands the suppression, he kills Lilia there. I think he just dies, so he probably did himself a favor by missing. But why recall there right before the Drake and then not have a position the TP back into the fight and force this? If you're getting off a big purchase, you're 4,000 gold ahead, you want to try and take advantage of that now because, as you well know, 4,000 gold at 18 minutes means a lot more than 4,000 gold at 35 minutes. At this point, there's maybe like 1.5 items separating the teams when most people have 2 to 4 items.
Yeah, it's not too big of an advantage. I was almost surprised because, as we said, just very confusing positional errors. You see just Kimberly having the priority on the Drake and just kiting all the way back despite no real engage. And then on the mid lane, Kimberly on the other side having all that priority but not just moving everybody down or even committing to that middle turret. I feel like they might have been able to burst it down. They might have traded back a member or two. But at this point, that might be worth it to try and open up that inhibitor and just find some sort of pressure here. And I'm honestly loving what we're seeing from Kimberly otherwise with just these very precise and not necessarily fully calculated, but always they have a very good idea of where they want to be on the map at all times, it feels like.
So one of the reasons why we might see so much stagnation on the side of Kimberly, and here they're doing exactly what I wanted them to do, where they send the Olaf bottom. He's getting collapsed on. That means they just get a free Baron on the top side. At least it should be a free Baron. Look at the ward line, right? And this is something where you see them not able to exort much more control because they're not pushing up the ward line as they advance down the map, getting these towers. But Olaf buying them a ton of time, allowing Kog'Maw and Lulu to push up that top wave after the Baron. This is going to get them some map pressure, but I would really like to see Mount Horeb here get that outer tier 2 bottom. Like, pick up something on the backside here. Getting one kill at this point when there's nothing on the map isn't that advantageous.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just about, if Mount Horeb was doing more of what Kimberly was doing, which is just doing a play, just committing to a play instead of just kind of aimlessly moving these 4 around the map. Yes, they're incredibly strong together, and if they do find a member of Kimberly around, there's no way that they're going to be able to beat the 3-man squad of typically what we've been seeing is this Janna, Cassiopeia, and Xayah walking around. But you see Kimberly making a great play there, getting the Baron, as we talked about, and trading back a lot of cooldowns on the side of Mount Horeb, seeing the Xayah ultimate come down, seeing the Lily ultimate come down. Those are 2 really huge teamfight ultimates. So maybe trying to find something now, just pushing this mid lane all the way in, maybe forcing a fight at that turret.
And this is what makes League of Legends such a difficult spectator experience, as we see Empress here getting caught out on the Lulu a little bit, is like, you see Mount Horeb is up in kills, right?
Yep.
But what has those kills translated to? We see 1 tower, 1 Rift Herald was obtained, 2 Drakes. They've gotten 4 objectives off of 18 kills. Meanwhile, on the side of Kimberly, they have gotten 2 Barons, 3 Drakes, 6 towers. I mean, they've gotten a whole buffet here off of fewer kills. And I think that just goes to show, like, the value of kills isn't in the kill itself. It's what you're able to do with that increased map pressure with the numbers advantage. And here, Kimberly, with this Baron buff, is trying to get another tower on the map. Olaf pushing in, exerting immense pressure, but they're staving them off. We see that wave clear from Cassiopeia coming in huge. And Olaf kind of taking a really greedy path here, might pay the price for this one.
Yeah, it's going to be close. The slow from the Rylai's will not quite be enough with the undertow hitting home on the Cassiopeia. Now they find themselves in this exact same position. They do have the Baron buff, so they're going to have those additional stats. That will be very nice, but will it be enough to overcome just this team comp diff that we've seen? They do pick up the Dragon Soul, which is actually huge. Denying Janna those extra stacks of the heal and shield power is going to be very big going into these continuing fights. And then obviously the buff from the soul itself is huge for keeping this Olaf alive in particular, and also with the wild growth, the Kog'Maw is going to be outputting a lot more damage. Frontline Kog'Maw now coming out, missing the ultimate is the Cassiopeia, thankfully, but that was some very ballsy play there by Splashba.
Yeah, unfortunately for Cassiopeia, not able to turn the Kog'Maw to stone, but really, this Kimtech buff saves the Kimberly scaling a bit. Olaf and Kog'Maw are immensely salvaged in terms of their late game scaling now, but this pick out on the Warwick, is he going to be able to trade 1-for-1 here onto the Xayah? Oh no, that was so brutal. They had to expend a lot. It was a 4 versus 1, and he still got a ton out of that Xayah, and that just shows how weak Xayah is comparatively right now. However, keeping both summoner spells, just trading the ultimate cooldown at this phase of the game, almost level 16, not the end of the world, but it is looking bleak suddenly with a 6,000 gold lead ballooning here for Kimberly, and that Soul Drake that we were talking about that's going to be allowing Olaf and Kog'Maw to stay in tune with Cassiopeia and Alawi just a bit more than they would otherwise.
No, that's something I hadn't really fully thought about. With Chemtech Drake in particular, when I see Chemtech Drake and I see Enchanters on the team, that's the main, in my opinion, that's the main focus. That 6% heal and shield power is a huge singular buff to get, even just for singular drags. But as you were saying before, the buff from the Drake is even more important when you see these champions that thrive off of being in low health, such as the Olaf and the Warwick. So it's going to be interesting to see if that's going to change the dynamic of these fights when they actually get into these 5v5s.
Yeah, no, I think that Olaf now actually can just run it down with the team. Before, I would say that we were in a mid game where he was struggling to do so, but Splashba completely out of place there. I don't know why he split off from Empress walking through that choke, but that's a huge pick for Mount Horeb, and you're going to see, can they convert anything? That's where they've been struggling.
Yeah, no objectives on the map, but they just have to make a decision. It's go bot, we have to find something here on this massive, massive pick. That is so much DPS being removed from this team comp, the main carry. So it's just a matter of finding a play and just committing to it.
And the minion waves are just not in their favor.
Yeah.
You look at bot, you look at top, they're getting pushed in. They really need to try and get some of these waves in a slow push maybe, so that when they're converting kills in the mid lane, they can go to the side lane and see a stacked wave. Not the easiest thing to do sometimes, especially when you're, I would say maybe like a lower elo player that doesn't really concern yourself with wave states that much. You can typically kind of think, oh, I just need to full clear this wave. But doing things like just clearing the caster line can actually really help you in terms of setting yourself up for a few minutes down the line.
Denying that reset's going to be pretty nice, especially with this Baron coming up now. They do have priority. Fantastic decision making here by Mount Horeb. They do just finally find themselves in the perfect position. They are zoning off from chokes. A huge chunk onto Akali, which is actually going to be pretty big, considering now with these additional items, it might actually be able to find a full one-shot onto somebody. Now it being put down this low, it's going to be hard to find a full combo without just being bursted down.
Yeah, and Akali cannot play this off angle. If I were Akali, I would recall, I would TP to that top wave, and I would try and approach maybe with the Olaf. They do have double TP available to them right now, and you could end up in a 3-2 pincer.
Yeah, and got a lot of movement here. Olaf actually has a very good flank, so if they can actually utilize that, walks to the other side, that's okay.
Good Splashba might have a good flank.
Yeah,
there
you go. The frontline Kog'Maw has been surprisingly effective. That slow now coming out, and they're just conceding of this space, although they kind of had to. A very good rotation there by Ravenheart. Didn't even need to blow the teleport there with these new Chemtech enhanced blast cones. Gonna find a little bit of poke onto the Alawi, but it seems like she's much more tanky, must have a lot more armor than she did before. So going to be able to effectively control that choke down there by her own. It's just a matter of how Mount Horeb are going to be able to walk in through that choke and find space.
Now, Kimberly, they do not need to walk into these chokes. I don't know why they are playing this very anxiety-inducing game here where they are trying to really contest chokes versus an Alawi Cassiopeia comp. They can just wait. They can wait for them to walk into the wide open space of the river and give themselves a much more advantageous field to play on here. Alawi missing the tentacle grab, so that's going to give them a few moments of respite here, but the mid lane is pushing. We see Old Croc trying to get some more pressure down, and that sets them up in a position where they can really dictate, do we even want to fight this Baron, or do we want to draw everyone down to the Elder Dragon as it's spawning? And it looks like that's what they're opting to do. They're maybe potentially even giving the Baron here in exchange for the Elder Drake, or they're saying we want to walk into them, which is a risky proposition.
Yeah, I mean, they just expended so much time there, and then to try and walk down to the Elder, which hadn't even spawned yet, they do get the Baron, and now the fight is commenced. My goodness, Olaf and Kog'Maw both finding kills here. They're just getting melted. This Kog'Maw is too big.
And Kimberly played the long con there.
We
thought they were making a game-losing decision, but they opted into it. They said, you know what? Let's just fight them right here, right now. Kog'Maw, absolutely massive. They don't lose anyone on that 5-0 ace. It's going to end up in a game-winning push here as they push down the mid lane. They really showed us. I honestly thought that walking into the Cassiopeia, walking into the Alawi would be a death sentence. I don't think Janna even got off the Monsoon, which is a critical mistake there. Probably beating themselves up after the game for that one, but unfortunately, you can't always get that R key off when you would like, and we see Kimberly take the first game here in kind of a shaky fashion, but steadily winning the entire game pretty much.
Yeah, that whole last 3 minutes, it really could have went either way, it felt like, almost, with how they were both playing those objectives, waiting so long as to the Elder Dragon going to be coming up in a minute, and then unfortunately just committing to the wrong objective. And then the turnaround. Happening with the Kog'Maw. I mean, they just didn't have the damage in the end.
And that's one of those situations where you put all your eggs in the Cassiopeia basket and you kind of flip it. You see what happens. I think they probably could have played that a bit slower, but I mean, when the other team just gives you Baron like that, and
tough.
you have one tower across the entire map at that point, it's really hard to turn away from that one.
Yeah, I mean, all in all, though, I think the biggest thing that we showed was that Kimberly, despite, I feel like we've already established this draft disadvantage, able to find these miracle almost plays at the end here. That could be something to look for as far as a change in strategy. Maybe getting rid of this Olaf here for Mountain Horeb seemed like a really huge issue, just unable to find any answers to that across the map. But other than that, I felt like it wasn't a draft issue. Maybe just going in the back, talking with your players more about the strategy within the game.
Yeah, and you see the damage chart here.
Yeah.
Absolutely nutty damage from the Kog'Maw, and that's with building 3.5 damage items. Wits End going to give a little bit of durability there. Honestly, though, I'm surprised that the Kog'Maw didn't go more in the tank. I think that it could have been way more durable while only losing maybe 1,000 or 2,000 damage off the back end of that. On the flip side, though, you see Cassiopeia and Alawi pretty much even on how much they were contributing to those fights, as well as the Lilia. Lilia, like you pointed out, did have a lot of early game pressure, wasn't able to get much off of it. I think if you're Mount Horeb, you don't feel too bad about that game.
Yeah.
You probably think, okay, we make a couple of adjustments. Maybe we draft a stronger early game bottom lane. We don't give over something like the Cog Lulu, and you feel fine running it back.
Yeah, absolutely. So with these small adjustments, we'll see within the next draft phase in the next game. But for now, we're going to take a short break, just let these players get their strategies set up and recover for this game 2 here. Going to be a very exciting match. We'll get back to you in a couple of minutes. Welcome back, everybody. Coming into Game 2 draft already, we're seeing an adjustment. Kog'Maw going to be the first ban here for Moho, and then the Zeri going to be another pick. Two very strong champions right now, but it's just going to be a matter of time to find out just how much different we're getting in draft.
And it's a bot lane-centric meta. Really surprised if we don't see a Cassiopeia ban from the side of Kimberly. I think that it warranted a ban just because of how precarious things did get, but we're going to see probably same bans coming out from their side. The good adjustment, we talked about this during the break, Kog'Maw a must ban right now, and they're actually banning
Self-ban.
Lilia.
Interesting. I'm actually kind of wondering if that was a mistake, like almost, just because that was their first pick last time.
So my theory would be, yes, the trade in Prio, they probably felt like they either pick or ban Lilia Hecarim last game, banned Hecarim, pick Lilia this game, swap it around, give themselves a bit more engage. On the side of Kimberly, though, making the very good read, banning that Cassiopeia, forcing out a new look from that mid lane matchup.
Horse meta, I guess, with the first pick, first ban, Hecarim, Lilia. Lucian now coming out, maybe seeing Lucian Milio, given that Milio was dropped both games. Okay, we like the Warwick.
Yeah, and that jungle pick Prio right now is a little weird in terms of timing. I would really appreciate you just probably picking your bottom lane there, since you know they already have their jungler, maybe grabbing yourself that Milio or that Nami, but you know, we'll just see what happens here. Sivir, Janna, that's going to be a safe, stable lane. They're going to be able to farm up, play safe. And Sivir with Hecarim is like the go button, right?
Yep.
Press R, run them down, enable your Hecarim. We'll have to see with the Trinity Force buffs if he opts into that build.
Has that been? I've seen a lot more lethality Hecarim. Has Triforce been a big change in build variation?
Well, I think looking at the recent nerfs on 1311 to Ghostblade, that lethality did take a slight hit, but you're very right in terms of he has options here. We could see 3 or 4 different build paths realistically. Lulu being picked up on the side of Kimberly, we saw that playing off huge dividends for them last game, but the issue here, Lulu with Lucian, probably not the most optimal pairing. I know you were talking about the Milio, and unfortunately not going to be seeing that yet in this series, but still a strong enchanter pickup to put with that Lucian, whose passive is just so enabled by those picks.
Yeah, absolutely. Lucian Lulu is still a lane that you'll see. You do get the additional damage with picks when she does try to empower your basic autos. But obviously, Milio, I'm shocked, honestly, that we haven't seen more priority on this pick, whether it be picked or banned, especially in a lane that you kind of want to abuse in this gen and the Sivir, that you don't see the Milio coming out with the extra range, the free poke, essentially, that you get with this Lucian. I believe it's the highest or one of the highest win rate duos in solo queue right now. But I guess at the same time, Lulu extremely good into Hecarim, so it does go both ways there.
Yeah, just throwing Whimsy on him, being able to take him out of the team fight for a quick second as he's diving your backline. Here, really surprised to see Moho actually ban the Akali. I felt like that was a non-factor. We talked about the awkward build path and rune selection in the mid lane for the previous game by Old Croc, but maybe a pretty intensive control mage pick here from Kimberly with the Azir coming out. That is going to provide them with a lot of mid prio potentially, and with the recent changes just a few patches ago, perhaps this pick is a bit more viable for these players.
I do like the Echo into the Azir, but as far as a blind pick, I think Azir is fantastic. I mean, it's got a lot of mobility. It's very safe. The main issue is it's extremely difficult to play. So it's just a matter of if you feel like your mid laner is comfortable on it, and here we see Kimberly has the faith in there in the team to go for it.
Yeah, and we saw 3 top lane picks in the back half, bans in the back half of this draft. I think, though, going with the Kled, with the Hecarim, with the Sivir, with the Echo, my goodness, they are out for blood. I would not be surprised to see Moho playing extremely aggressive around these objectives, getting into the river, running down the first target they see, trying to skew the fights immediately. On the other side of the draft here, though, from Kimberly, we're seeing a lot of stability from the Azir in the mid lane, Jax just going to try and have a lot of side lane pressure, maybe get some good flanks off in those team fights. We were kind of critical of Ravenart not always looking for those angles, though, not looking for those TP flanks. So that's something he's going to have to be much more mindful of in this matchup.
Absolutely. I'm kind of surprised that they picked the Jax into the Kled, because from my experience, from my understanding, Kled is perfectly fine, perfectly willing to play that matchup, because although he does rely a lot on those basic autos, which would be countered by the Counter-Strike, once the Counter-Strike is down, you can remount pretty easily as long as you're above half health with Skarl. So it's going to be interesting to see how this Jax plays out in these teamfights, because as we said, it's not like he's great at peel, so you're going to be wanting to put him in a split push lane, but Kled could potentially just be beating him. So we'll see how they decide to utilize that.
That's going to be some cantankerous Counter-Strike moments up in the top lane, but I'm really excited just to see what happens in this bottom lane those first few minutes. We know at the level 2 in the previous game, Kimberly really exerted their pressure, got the advantage early on, traded heavily onto Janna on the side of Moho, and I really want to see if we're going to see that even more accelerated by the Lucian here. Lucian, a notorious lane bully, known for that infamous level 2. So if they can go down there, get that pressure early on, it could be a early doom for the bottom side of Moho. But we talked about it with Sivir, with Janna. They're really more about enabling the top side of the map. There's so much carry potential between Hecarim, Kled, and Echo. Kled with the favorable matchup. And I hope that we can see them maybe take more advantage of playing around early heralds, getting some plating for their laners, potentially giving some more gold over into the pockets of Kled and Echo. And I think realistically, if we see them play a bit more aggressively, shake off some of the land jitters, we could see Hecarim, try to invade a bit on that top side, right? Try to go in for those Raptors and Krugs more consistently. Those are camps that Hecarim can clear very quickly with his Rampage stacks and be able to starve out this Warwick, who wasn't very fast in his clear in the previous game.
Yeah, that's a great point. Just the clear speed is something that could absolutely be taken more advantage of, especially when you want this lane, this top lane Kled, to get ahead and potentially play towards the Rift Herald. I really like this draft for Moho just because it has a lot more direction to it rather than the last one. It's going to be a lot easier to find these picks with these two go buttons that we talked about in the Kled and the Hecarim.
Yeah, the Engage is going to make this a very exciting matchup between these two teams. As a jungler, though, I'm always looking for which jungler is going to try and dictate the pace of the game, especially for those first 10 to 12 minutes. I want to see people make those plays. Hecarim going for some greedy chicken invades, trying to get off a double scuttle, pushing in for vision, getting a deep control ward in early, right? Maybe behind the red buff on the top side of Kimberly's map, or, vice versa. Warwick going in, playing around that power point of a bottom lane and potentially getting some deep vision in there and potentially setting up some dives. This is a very diveable bottom lane if they play their cards right. There's not a ton early game that Janna can do before getting that Monsoon at level 6, especially if she just throws out those tornadoes willy-nilly, as we see Janna's do sometimes. They like to charge up those tornadoes and look at the big damage number, potentially the long knockup duration. But once that is down in a tower dive scenario, it's really easy to exploit them.
Absolutely. Something interesting we haven't talked about too much is how these two are going to be interacting with each other, these two team comps. As we see in the chat, talking about full dive versus Azir Lulu. Do you feel like the Azir and Lulu will be enough to stop the just brute force engage that Moho is going to be providing here?
So in regards to that, yes, we kind of pointed this out that Hecarim does struggle against Peel Enchanters typically, but I don't know, man. I just feel like Azir, outside of like the highest tiers of play, is very difficult to perform on consistently. If we are in these elongated encounters, Azir gets up a few of his soldiers and is in a pretty stable spot to just be able to self-pill with his ult to call up Shurima to defend him and his teammates. Yeah, maybe Hecarim becomes a non-factor, but really we might just see Hecarim kind of charge in with the E and hold on to his ultimate a bit more, right? That's something that you see good Hecarim players be a bit more cognizant of, is not just, charging in with the onslaught of shadows and then suddenly be left with, up the creek without a paddle.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a matter of patience with the engages here. As we talk about, yes, there are a lot of tools here that Kimberly has in order to stop that, but there are also plenty of ways to play around it.
And we're seeing here the junglers opting to path towards what was their kind of weak side of the map in the previous game. Of course, hard to say that about Olaf. It's just that Lulu and Kog'Maw put in so much work on the bottom side. But yeah, Leafwing and Hecarim here both opting to get their blue buffs, very mana-hungry junglers, and kind of, for Hecarim, I wouldn't be surprised if we just see him full clear, but he is going toward the Wolves second, so maybe three camp into a full clear backup toward top side, or no, just going for Gromp third.
Maybe looking for that early top gank, just because he did have to, or the Kled did end up leashing, giving that advantage over to the Jax and push, maybe kind of baiting almost this Jax forward in order to give the Hecarim a chance at this top lane.
Oh, and Jax reading it like a book, though, getting off that early vision in the river, walking into the bush, protecting himself a little bit. Lucian getting the level 2 early, going in, but nice trade back from the Sivir, not taking damage for nothing there.
Yeah, now you see Hecarim also hovering in this mid lane, trying to find a little bit of advantage. It's going to be very tough to actually do anything, though, with the dash, but is able to flash out. Getting that summoner is very, very important here for this assassin matchup into the Azir early.
Yeah, that is pretty huge for the Echo, who was struggling there in the first couple levels of the lane. Not too much you can do. You're kind of just last hitting. You know that as an assassin into a control mage, all you have to do is wait for your all-in and, grit your teeth and bear. We do see him running Ignite in the mid lane as opposed to the teleport, and now he sees Old Croc has no mana, going to trade a bit more aggressively, knowing that he just has nothing to return with.
Yeah, now is where we're going to see some very important decision-making being made here in the mid lane, whether to just sacrifice this wave. It is, unfortunately, pushing into the Echo. So you got to decide, are you either going to reset and teleport back, or are you just going to try and do what you can, farm the minions that you can, and hope that your mana is going to regenerate fast enough to not drop too much experience in gold?
Yeah, he definitely needs to play a bit more conservatively here with his mana. Needs to be in a position where he can maneuver his way out with the E. We saw the bottom lane of Kimberly there, a bit cheeky, move up and actually take the scuttle while their jungler is on the top half of the map. That feels terrible for
Yeah,
Hecarim.
that's rough. I mean, I am also surprised they didn't just go around and full clear. The Warwick actually had a very impressive full clear, honestly, as far as timing. Now we see big trade back into Old Croc, now paying the price for staying in lane. Still, honestly, at a fine HP to chill and just regenerate that mana, but you're seeing already the CS advantage is growing.
So Sivir did start with Cull. That means that even though she's behind about a wave, still getting a little bit more value out of her CS. And in general, we're seeing a slight gold advantage on the side of Moho. And oh my goodness, he chokes under the tower dive there, it feels like. But, putting himself at a summoner disadvantage.
Yeah, it's definitely tough having to flash out there. Thought he had just a little bit more damage, but that shield from Azir, surprisingly big, did save him there. Does also force out teleport, I guess, which you could consider good, but he's going to pick up that wave right after. Or not even having to teleport, it doesn't look like. So, not ideal, but you still do have a 11 CS advantage as the assassin. You've got your Dark Seal. You're not in a terrible spot by any means.
Splashba still trying to trade aggressively, but we're not seeing much of that damage stick between the spell shield of the Sivir and the Janna shield on her E. Unfortunately for Kimberly, it looks like they're not able to really exert much control over either of these side lanes at the moment. And mid lane is down about 2 waves, however, has bought themselves some breathing room with keeping the teleport as well as getting both of the summoners out of the Echo. Would really like to see Azir maybe play a bit more aggressively here, knowing that if they take some unfavorable trades, no problem, just TP back to lane.
Yeah, that saved that trade of summoners really saved Old Croc's lane, at least for the short term. Obviously, still going to be a pretty tough matchup going forward, but still having that teleport and being able to push in these waves, look to maybe even go for this dragon here. You see pushing wave mid, pushing wave bot, jungler is bot side. This could be our first objective.
In terms of the jungle clear that we pointed out, it looks like Hecarim is, he got that early tier. He's now stacking it just full clearing now, which is what we would have expected from his level 1. Old Croc has to be careful here. Echo does have his ultimate, and that's going to allow him to recoup a lot of the damage that Old Croc puts down on him in these initial phases of their trades, but still, no worse for wear there in the mid lane, and kind of is crawling back from some of this CS deficit.
Really good place to be there for Leafwig, just stopping that gank, knowing that it could be a potential, knowing that his mid wave is pushing. I like that awareness out of the Warwick there. Big trade, though, coming in, forcing out the exhaust. That is going to be actually a big summoner spell coming to this Drake fight, which could be coming soon. Just a matter of which team is going to want to start it up, want to look for that pushing wave, and push for that advantage.
Yeah, and it's going to be Splashba and Empress really playing around the spell shield of Sivir there. Lucian with the W, that Ardent Blaze can get that spell shield out without really losing a ton of DPS. If Moho's Sivir there is able to spell shield the Piercing Light, that is going to put them in a much better position to trade back. But at the end of the day, they really don't want to engage in these 2v2 trades. They want to just kind of spell shield, throw a Q, and walk away.
Absolutely. And something I've been impressed with so far is just this Jax play. I mean, to be fair, Kled has been playing a little bit passively, but to accrue a 60 farm, which would be 14 up, is pretty impressive against the Kled at any point, just because of how aggressive and oppressive that pick can be. Now we're going to see a little bit of gank on the mid lane here. Really good stun. Might actually be able to look for a kill with that Ignite, and the ult really well played there by Moho's mid laner. But so much sustain and healing coming back. First blood going to the Azir, and that's a big kill for the control mage.
And that's really unfortunate that you didn't get more hill cut out of that Ignite there. It just wore off right as Warwick was ulting him, so was able to sustain through all of that damage that he initially got down with the huge ultimate into the convergence. But, it's one of those situations where, as Echo, you have to constantly be trying to track the enemy jungler. It's really hard for you to win these 1v2 situations with the tools that you have.
Okay.
And on the top side, we see another 1v2 playing out, but this time it's in favor of Moho.
Yeah, going to be looking for a kill here. Does get the leap strike away. Ult is available, but opting not to use it here is the Hecarim. So maybe just a little bit worried about the jungle presence in the top lane. Not confident in the damage. Do you feel like you could have had something there?
The Jax was also holding his ultimate, so realistically, it probably would have been a trade of ultimates, and we did still have the flash on the side of the Jax. It was a good attempt, but unfortunately, not nearly enough to pressure the Jax out of lane there.
There we go. Get the Emperor's Divide into the turret, but not enough damage, more for self-peel. Now Leafwig might be able to find something. Doesn't have the ult, but does have that E available. Queuing forward, does get a very, very good fear. Just able to walk away. Very good play here out of the mid lane so far.
Yeah, and that was a great play on the behalf of the Warwick there. A heads-up play to kind of bail his mid laner out. But Jax here getting traded on pretty favorably by the Kled, but Kled now demounted off of Skarl.
He does avoid. Oh, gets
Flash
flashed on
counter
ult.
strike into the Warwick ult.
That was flashy right there, and that's exactly what he needed. I mean, I would have liked to see Kled continue to trade there with that advantage, as we talked about. Once you get Skarl off, that's when the counter-strike really becomes a huge danger. But once you have Skarl, if you have Skarl, then you're fine. At worst, you can maybe eat a little bit of that health and look to remount. So really looking for these extended trades in the top lane is going to be the improvement that you're looking for that could potentially turn this lane around.
Kled is a pick whose lore lines up exactly with his playstyle, right? Like, you cannot be a cowardly varmint on Kled. You have to fight for your life.
Yep.
And there, he really kind of wanted to back off after getting off his W proc with the deadly blades there, and it didn't work out for him that well. Demounted, get flash counter strike into the Warwick ult. Probably a bit overkill, to be honest,
Maybe, yeah.
but nothing wrong with making sure that Jax continues to snowball this gold lead. And Kled rushing the plated still caps means that not a whole lot of offensive power. Still getting off a great demolish proc on that top turret to get a plate, but it's going to be difficult for him now in this lane, continuing to push up. Still has his flash, but we know Ravenheart on this Jax is going to continue putting on the pressure.
Absolutely. Something we haven't talked about so far has been this bot lane, and after looking back, accruing a big advantage, nearly a 30 CS lead here at minute 11. This is definitely a power point that Kimberly should look to push, and they are starting this dragon here.
Yeah, Echo, seeing the dragon being started, doesn't want to give this away for free, but you look at where the Hecarim is on the map right now, and it looks like they are going for Muramana into lethality build here. This Hecarim is going to be very squishy, really needs to scale up, get a couple items underneath his belt, probably wants to work with the Kled more to try and get some picks. Doesn't really want to engage in larger team fight skirmishes at the moment.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a matter of finding better positions to put this Hecarim in. It feels like you haven't been able to find really anything so far, haven't really found a farm advantage. So let me just focus on one or the other. Do I want to, as Hecarim, look for these kills and kind of try to even force a play or to try and find something? Or do I just want to, you know what, I'm just going to power farm, I'm going to look to gain that experience lead, and then use that to get kills across the map instead?
And here we see them really use their mid lane and top lane prio wisely. Kled has been consistently pushing in, as well as Echo. On the other side of the map, though, here we see the equal and opposite reaction. Once again, it's always about cross-mapping in League of Legends. Can we see Leafwing actually exert any pressure on this bottom lane? The wave isn't very big. He's maybe looking to get some camps here, but for the most part, not able to capitalize off of the knowledge that Hecarim is at the Rift Herald taking that.
Yeah, will find himself with a couple of Krugs and potentially the Raptors as well, but it looks like, oh, that, okay, did get the ultimate out. Once again, maybe might have been a little bit of a panic flash. Not sure if the fear would have went through, but at the end of the day, flash for an ultimate is always a trade that you're willing to take.
Yeah, and Warwick is in this very sticky position, right? It seems like he wants the dive. It feels like they're calling for the dive, but this is a doomed dive. Sivir has way too much wave clear. The wave is not stacked. It's not in a great position. He's wasting so much time continuing to take poke from the Boomerang Blade. If they attempt to dive this, it is not going to go well.
Yeah, both ultimates are going to be available for the bot side as well. They feel like they're just going to walk away. They do have the Work ultimate available. Does get the suppression down. Might have enough burst for one, but it looks like forcing two more flashes. Does get the calling out. The fear is fantastic. Monsoon now pushes them back. Takes another tower shot. This is being played well by both sides, but it looks like the one taking the advantage. Does get one, might be able to find more. Echo ult is available. Is Polymorph walking back to his turrets? They are kind of stuck there, though. Cavalry will arrive soon. Does have Old Croc rotating. Exhaust comes out, but that is not nearly enough. Ghosting is the Lucian looking for more. Whiffs the Emperor's Divide, and now you see the Hecarim comes to play. Two people under turret. You have the Echo there. All of his cooldowns are going to be coming back up. Smiting, but having to walk away here. Just going to be a simple 2 for 2, but man, was that stressful.
And that felt like a little bit of tunneling on the Lucian just because you know how much of a threat Splashba has been in both of these games. I feel like the Azir was in a better position for them to potentially pick up a third kill off that trade, but Echo now huge position in this game, just picked up the rocket belt, has the Sork boots, has already been putting in a ton of pressure on the map despite, you know, making some misplays in the early game, not getting as much value out of that combat summoner in the Ignite as he would have liked, but they're really salvaging what felt like an over-aggression on the part of Kimberly.
Yeah, I mean, honestly impressive, though, that Kimberly found anything there at all. We talked about just how much peel and wave clear they had. To use the culling and the fear, or the culling to push the two members of Moho into that fear, it was very effective, very well done.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely used every single tool in the toolbox to get what they could out of that. But you saw, I mean, when you're in that kind of position, you're, you know, 1,000, 2,000 gold up in the early game, whiffing the onslaught of shadows. You don't really need to dive to the tier 2 inner lane bottom to, you know, that early when there's nothing on the map to get off of it. Here we see a invade gone wrong. Kled is moving down, but Jax is already there meeting them. It's going to be a fight in the tri-bush potentially, but Lucian continuing to try and trade aggressively. You love to see that. It doesn't matter how the trades go. You don't want to see him play passively. Jax here, amazing damage coming out from the lamp strike on that ultimate.
Oh, wow, just very good fight here so far. Azir playing this surprisingly well. The positioning of the soldiers here is fantastic. Almost picks up Hecarim. Probably going to be looking for it. Leap Strike is in danger, but oh my gosh, so much burst here from the Echo, picking up 2.
And this is where you see the Echo making them pay. They gave him an inch. He's taking a mile time and time again. He now has a 300 gold bounty despite dying in that engage in the top lane. So, I mean, that was them making the best of a really bad situation. Jax comes in super strong, bonks the Kled out of the fight early on, but then Echo, not even having the onslaught of shadows from his Echoram, is able to take out 2 people just with that early power he has. Don't sleep on the fact that Echo early on with the Sork Shoes and the Rocket Belt has just a way more advantageous position in these skirmishes than the Azir.
Yeah, this is also kind of speaking to the power of these counter matchups. He found such a big advantage. It is now leveraging this so well. He's got not only... I thought he had a level lead there. He has a very good CS lead nonetheless. Now he's
Onslaught Shadows back
coming in. He's kind of caught out here. Oldcrock's going to need to find a way to weasel himself out of this one. He does get out temporarily only, though, because Echo can jump around the map very well.
Yeah, keep funneling the money into him. I think that's the key thing here. If you're in solo queue right now, you see your mid lane Echo has 6 kills and your team has 6 kills, and you're probably a little scared, right? You're like, oh man, all they have to do is kill this one guy and we lose every single fight. In a competitive environment, when you're coordinating, when you're working together like Hecarim and Kled are here to continue to set up your Echo, you feel really good about that investment.
Oh yeah, this Echo's getting all the attention, and it's all deserved. I mean, it's just a matter of where to put this Echo at this point, because he's a one-man death squad.
And we noticed Hecarim early on with some suboptimal pathing. It is really clear here that the Hecarim's clear speed has really salvaged some of that. Now with a CS advantage, at the same point in his smite upgrade, Old Croc trying to be a bit more aggressive here, but I don't think there's really anything he can do versus this Echo 1v1 at the moment.
No, not at all. So despite the early game advantage, it's just going to be a matter of scaling for this Azir. The only issue is Echo scales fairly well as well. He does have a lot more burst potential, and that ultimate's going to come off cooldown a lot sooner. So just a difference in play style almost. You have to look for these picks a lot more, which obviously if we've seen anything from this Moho comp, it's finding picks. But you need to find that 5v5 situation where the Lulu and the Azir are going to be really effective.
Now, here's what I'm interested in. What do you think that recurve bow is in the Echo's inventory? Are we going to see a Nashor's Echo?
It's got to be Nashor's because he also has the Fiendish Codex there. Usually only built into tankier teams, but I could understand how into a Jax who's going to be going probably Jack shows, how that could be somewhat useful.
Yeah, I could see it personally. I think Echo is one of those champions that you look at the core of what they need. Onslaught Shadows coming in, giving Echo a lot of what he needs on that engage, and now they are just blowing people up. Kled getting himself on the board with that one onto Leafwing, and there's just so much sustained DPS left in the fight here as Jax cannot 1v3 that.
Does pick up the Eye of the Herald, however, so may be able to find some sort of macro advantage. Once again, I mean, we have an 8 and 2, 10 Darksteel stack Echo right now. That is a problem that needs to be sorted out soon.
Yeah, and you know, like I was saying, Echo really does want to get some of these core items that are a bit more defensive. You want to see the Zhonya's come out to give them sort of like a backup. It builds time, potentially allows for you to get off a better ultimate in the team fights, as well as just gives you a little bit more room for error. And Echo, the thing that you see far too often is them get fed, go and make a bold play, and then not hit R in time, and suddenly they're giving up a 600 gold bounty. Not sure we're going to have to worry about that here based on the way he's playing out this encounter. And Moho is in a great position to send this to game 3. They really came back out swinging. They didn't let the game 1 loss rattle them at all. And they're sending 4 toward this bottom lane.
This is bad. You need to get out of there. Maybe trading back is not a bad idea either, but this TP could be rough. Might find 2. No, shut down here for the Echo. He's going forward. He wants more. Lulu, you got to run, girl. Get out of there. Got a charge coming on the backside. Jax does pick up 1, but now he's in the middle of 3 members of Moho. Does get the 2-man stun. Might get 1 more, but he's going down eventually.
The Empress left behind. The Emperor in the mid lane just farming it up. Warwick doesn't have Herald, but is dead set on attacking that tower. They know that bottom lane is a lost cause. Able to get one tower back, but Echo just demolishing his health bar, and there we see it.
If only there was a Zhonya's. That's all I can say. But
Yeah.
I was going to make a comment about this guy bought Medjai's, and now he's got 20 stacks, but we're back to 10. So no worries there. But still, once again, surprising buy there. Not a lot of Medjai's usage once you get to these sorts of levels of play.
Yeah, and you know, the lockdown from the Warwick preventing Echo from hitting R in time, that's one of those situations where it feels really bad, but potentially you just have to use your ultimate early and dodge the Warwick suppression.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough decision to make. How do you feel about the build here by Azir? Apologies. By Old Crackle. It used to be a more bursty build, now looking for the Nashers and the Leandries.
Yeah, and this is something that Riot, when they were making these changes, talked about a lot. You know, Freak is a former caster, and now he's on the Game Balance team, and he releases a lot of these talks about their updates to champions, and he wanted to put Azir in a position where you could build attack speed and not be trolling your teammates. And I think we're seeing that here with both the Conqueror taken as the keystone, as well as the Nasher's second item. It's just going to still take a long time for this to come online. And I'm not sure if they have the luxury of time here as we see Hecarim and Echo going in. The dive buddies once again, the wider growth, not able to salvage enough of this fight. Jax coming in on the backside though, hoping to trade heavily here, but his team has just evaporated before his very eyes.
5 for 0. That is a catastrophic loss there. I thought the Jax was going to completely turn that around, but a fantastic ult there by Moho Esports. Janna, I mean, what a play. We have seen this Hecarim and Echo work together so well. The timing on that W from the Echo has been completely spot on with the Onslaught of Shadows, and now they're going to be looking for more.
And now we see the move toward Baron. They have plenty of time on the clock. They don't have to worry about any summoner spells coming into play here. No teleports affecting the outcome of this. Warwick potentially, though, going for a steal. He is a man on a mission. He's going to see if he can do the impossible, or he might just take his chickens.
Oh, he's sprinting. He got his ult. He sees the angle. Almost gets the drive-by, but now, unfortunately, finds himself in a little bit of an awkward position. Just going to try to meander out, but now going to be picked up by the Hecarim. This has been a very big gold swing within the last 5 minutes. While Moho were ahead, now up 5,000 gold, 6,000 almost. What is the way back into the game here for Kimberly?
This is tough, right? Because we see here that consistently, Empress once again getting caught out, which on this Lulu this game, enabling a Lucian instead of a Kog'Maw not being as effective. But Kimberly, the things they were doing well in the previous game, they're still doing well on, right? Strong side lane pressure from their top lane. Really great 2v2 matchup in the bottom lane, leading to a CS and item advantage. The problem? The mid lane. It just doesn't matter. Cassiopeia kind of playing passively, waiting around chokes for people to walk into a petrifying gaze or miasma. That's not happening in this game. We're seeing Echo and Hecarim run, sprint at the side of Kimberly and take the fights they want whenever they see them.
It would have been even more amusing to see the Shirelias here coming out from the Janna just go full move speed. But I mean, obviously, to talk about some of the item changes a little bit, Echoes of Helia, absolutely absurd item.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're seeing the priority on enchanters, particularly like the Janna right now. On the side of Empress and Kimberly, we're seeing the Shirelias come out, but in the bottom lane, a Kled engage that kind of goes awry. Jax able to simply leap out of it, it looks like, with, well, no, he has Sweeper, so he just walked out of that situation.
Just judging the Kled ultimate a little bit, and now we see, could be a little bit of a tussle here in the bottom lane. A lot of damage down onto that Kled. Burst is not usually what Jax is known for, but with these two items, I mean, he's got it.
And it feels like Kled is just trying to be better safe than sorry.
Cool.
It looks like he had an opportunity there to continue trading, but the Onslaught of Shadows, getting the angle as the tower falls, this is going to be huge for Moho. The Emperor's Divide getting absolutely nothing there.
Close to a spectacular play. Instead, ending a little bit of Tokyo drifting around the members, but another 3 for 0. This might actually spell the end of the game here.
Yeah, Empress trying to recall right in front of the opponents there. Moho having none of that. Ravenart kind of walking back now toward his team. He had teleport up. Now, I'm not sure how soon that came up, but it might have been a doomed fight either way. Here, a last-ditch attempt to try and salvage the Nexus, but unfortunately, they are not having any of this. Echo on the side of Moho, 14-3-7. Kimberly with their first loss of the season here in the semifinals. Now all the pressure is on them.
Absolutely. I mean, that was not at all what we were expecting from the last game. Last game obviously being very, very slow, trying to out-macro the enemy team, but it just felt like Moho came out and just punched him right in the face and just said, okay, what are we going to do about this? This draft was exactly what I was looking for, just some sort of direction on these team fights, and it felt like it solved all the problems just right there.
Yeah, they got rid of the passive, like almost like vegan draft where they're just sitting around trying to farm up some minions, right? They ended up actually with more kills last game, but once again, we saw with the picks that they had, they couldn't really turn those kills into anything. Here, entirely different story, right? When you've got these champs that are so bent on creating chaos, creating opportunities, and then capitalizing, they were able to just snowball this game into oblivion after going down in the early game initially.
I mean, very good mental play here from Moho. Just a matter of the other side for Kimberly. What? I mean, we had the adjustment here from Moho, and this is what I love about League of Legends, especially the draft phase, is you see how the meta shifts around each game. It's very clearly Enchanter-centric. We want to get Enchanter on the team, whichever team can peel better. But when you have this much engage, you really need to slot in some additional picks to stop the Hecarim, the Kled, and obviously the Echo, who just absolutely destroyed that game.
Yeah, and this is where you have to look at, okay, how much value is there in the Zeri ban, for instance? I'm not sure if that needs to be banned over something like the Hecarim now.
Yeah.
The Hecarim pickup was absolutely massive. We were critical of the early game clear, but once it got into those situations where they were unlocked in the river, he was just starting every single fight, and then cleanup crew Echo comes in, sweeping them away. I would love to see Kimberly maybe bring the Cassiopeia back on the board, right?
Absolutely.
Let them have the Cassiopeia, because Cassiopeia cannot dive into your team
not
with
like
the jungler.
what the Echo did.
Yeah, and blow up one or two people pretty instantly. So maybe potentially keep the Kog'Maw ban, add Echo and Hecarim to the stock, force Moho to either go back to some of those game one picks that push them to be a little bit more passive, take away some of these engage options. I think the Kled was relatively a non-factor, so if they want to take Kled, let them have Kled. I think that Ravenart can answer that on a consistent basis, but they really need to begin playing more around their bread and butter. That bottom lane. Splashba and Empress can win them game 3. They just need to set them up for success.
Absolutely. And we will see that going into this next game. You're going to take, once again, short break, let them strategize, let them recover. Very excited to see where this game goes, though. So we will see you in a couple minutes for game 3 of this series.
There's a voice in the back of my head, second guessing everything that I said. I've been feeling kinda strange lately. I think I lost myself completely. Never count on me. Never count on me. voice in the back of my head, second guessing everything that I said, everything that I said. I've been feeling kind of strange lately. I think I lost myself completely. Never count on me. Never count on me.
So many memories. We're lost in
Welcome back, everybody, here for Game 3, the deciding game to go to the finals here. And we're getting right into draft. We see the Zeriban again. How do you feel about that Zeriban?
Maybe I just don't have enough information on it, but I feel like at this point you've seen enough from the other side of Moho here to know what definitely is a threat and want to kind of eliminate those factors. Cassiopeia once again being banned as well. Not sure if that's going to be more prioritized than the Echo, but we did see the swap here. Kimberly now on blue side for the first time this series. I think they're trying to take the Hecarim with the first pick, but we'll have to see if that even makes it through the ban phase. We have Cassiopeia and Zeri on the side of Kimberly being banned. Opposite end, we see Lilia and Kog'Maw coming out. So once again, it seems like there's some sort of meta here revolving around Lilia and Hecarim, and we're going to have to see, do Moho flinch here and ban the Hecarim, or do they leave it up?
I feel like just banning it's the best idea, especially with how easy of an engage we saw. Okay, we'll see. Caitlyn, I think, is very strong. I think it can be in a very impressive laner, especially when the Lux would have been up too. But yeah, there you go. They're giving over the Hecarim.
At moment of truth, Ravenheart grabs the Hecarim for his team. We're going to see that in the hands of Leafwing 7. And I think both of us are in agreement here that we want to see Leafwing really make great use of the early clear speed and tempo advantage that Hecarim has over a lot of junglers. On the flip side, though, extreme gank pressure coming out from the side of Jarvan IV on the side of Moho.
Yeah, I love this Jarvan pick already. I mean, counter engage is great. I think picking Janna here is fine too. Jarvan is just such a versatile jungler. He has a surprisingly fast clear, although obviously not many people go that route.
Yeah.
He can somewhat match Jarvan through Hecarim through this early game until this Hecarim starts building a little bit more CDR. And now you see the Olaf here for 2 insta-locks. This must be their comfort. I'm assuming this is their comfort draft right here.
And that's what you want to see going into Game 3, right? Their season is on the line. Both of these teams, really, it's a do-or-die moment. Kimberly just faced their first loss of the entire spring season here. So going back to comfort, we saw Ravenheart on that Olaf in Game 1 being so effective, but here we see the Echo pick coming back out from Moho, and Jarvan getting in some early lane pressure onto Old Croc, blowing an early flash. We may see a level 2 gank, maybe a level 3 coming out, and that could set up Echo for success once more.
Yeah, it's kind of tough. So far I've been liking Kimberly's draft a lot more. Just having to slot into this Janna, obviously fantastic to play comfort. I think Janna is one of, if not the strongest enchanter in the game right now, especially for solo queue in particular. Obviously there's some differences in pro play once you get to that higher level. But having to slot in a Janna next to a Jarvan and Echo does not feel good, especially when you see what the other champions that Kimberly has drafted are.
Yeah, and we see the Kled pick come out, and I think both you and I are in agreement that Kled wasn't really a factor in that previous game, but in combination with the Echo, right?
Yep.
Using the charge to give Echo more engage potential into the fight, access to that backline. It's kind of just how much can they strip away the support system that this Echo will have, and that's where you see the Sivir comes out, and we don't want to see the Sivir are enabling Echo to dive the backline here again. Yeah, Jarvan once again. So Lulu and Jhin now coming out on the ban side of Moho, wanting to restrict the bottom lane options that are left up for Kimberly.
Absolutely.
Both teams need the draft in ADC. What's going to be the priority order here?
I've as we've seen in chat here, I mean, I've seen Emilio left up for the last 3 games, especially into Samira, just slam the Lilia, like the Emilio Lucian. That's what I would do. But I mean, Varus Lux, it's good in lane.
And we did see Moho actually ban Lux earlier in the series. So the fact that Empress was able to get their hands on the Lux could mean that this is something that they've been looking forward to. This is a comfort pick. And Splashba, been great on everything they've played today. I think Lucian in the previous game wasn't able to have the longer-term impact they would have liked, but on Varus, going to have a very good, stable presence throughout the course of this game. Set coming in on the side of Moho, though. How do you feel like the Set interacts with the other picks that are here on their team?
I think Set is fine into Olaf. I think that it beats Akali pretty well. Varus Lux, it really feels hard to play. In combination with Jarvan, it's good. It's just, you needed some form. You needed more of a go button. You needed more follow up with this Jarvan. That's what you really needed out of your R5 pick here. And especially with how long this Olaf has been up, I would have preferred almost taking that. If you were gonna pick Set, just pick at R4 or R4, and then go with your ADC pick R5, because Samira Janna is not a lane that you want to end up with, really.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of synergistic mistakes in the back half of Moho's draft here, and it's going to be all eggs in the Echo basket. Can he once again have this pop-off performance that we saw from him in Game 2 to send them to this elimination matchup in Game 3? But Set into Olaf, honestly, I'm not a fan of the matchup at all. Olaf presses Ragnarok, and suddenly, like, what do you do as Set?
It's tough.
You get run down.
It's really pre-6 you have any chance to do anything. I think that Set can survive once you hit level 6. It's just you're not typically looking for those kills. As with top lane always, if you get a kill on either side of this matchup, it could really swing it. I think a lot of the builds that Set has been going recently, with going Stridebreaker or Goredrinker first instead of that Bork, both of them would be good into this Olaf. I mean, slowing, the additional healing that you can get to get a better Haymaker, the additional slow in order to, if you're ahead, you can start snowballing that more. That could be big. Another thing, the Echo that made the Echo so good last game was that he had a fantastic free matchup in the mid lane. There was really no kill threat that the Azir had on this Echo. Whereas now Akali has a matchup that Akali's love once again, I don't play Akali, but from what I've heard, Akali's love playing into these melee picks where you can queue through the wave, not only get pushed but also trade, and then
trade with your passive.
Exactly. It can be a very tough situation for the Echo pre-6 unless you get some jungle help. So definitely look for this Jarvan to be running around the map.
Yeah, and Old Croc on Akali in Game 1 did struggle throughout the game on having impacts, especially later on as we got toward more of those objective-based fights. Both of these teams really need to rely a bit on certain players getting the angle, right? Set coming in off of a good flank could spell doom for the side of Kimberly here, right? Grabbing the right target, grabbing a Varus, Lux, or Akali to start the fight, bringing them into the team, instantly getting that follow-up from the Samira, from the Echo, could sway things drastically. However, on the other side here, I think Old Croc really does need to be a bit more conscientious of how they're engaging in these fights. Hecarim with the go button and the Olaf follow-up is great, but I mean, it's still nothing that's going to just set Akali up instantly. There's no hard CC that's going to give Akali some backline access here, so she needs to be looking for her own entry points into the fight a bit more cleverly.
Absolutely. It's interesting you talk about the synergistic differences, because I feel like we've had a kind of split in both drafts where you see the top lane, the whole first 3 picks for Kimberly is all aggressive. We're going in. We have this Hecarim and we have the Olaf. We are trying to beat you early. We're trying to roam around the map and make plays. And then you see B4, B5, Varus, Lux, and it's like, and now we're playing a poke comp, or is he going on hit? It's just, it's a little bit confusing. But especially, I mean, both sides have different tools then with these different picks. The Janna, fantastic peeling tool. And having that angle of the poke with the Lux, with the Varus, could give them a little something more.
Well, you say poke, but I actually may think that they're going for more of pick, right? And, you know, if Lux is able to land a binding, follow that up immediately with a Varus ult, and then suddenly much easier for your top side of the map to get into these fights. That may be what they're looking for here. And also just consistently having a very strong 2v2. It seems like at the end of the day, Splashba and Empress want to be able to fight in that bottom lane, want to be able to have the ability to do things like they did in Game 2, where they go for that early scuttle off of getting the push. Looking at the chat here, we see a lot of people disappointed that there's not more Milio priority from these teams. Perhaps we'll see it in the next series. And looking at you know, the favorism here, it looks like we're looking at, you know, the blue side draft having an advantage here. J4.
Do you agree with that?
I think so. From looking at this, you know, Olaf, Game 1, was pretty much able to do anything he wanted in that lane. I feel like Set, we talked about this, he's going to be able to survive not going to be able to thrive. Looking at the bottom lane, the range advantage cannot be understated. Varus Lux at level 1 can immediately start to push Janna Samira off the lane. Janna, they're leashing right now. She has to be really aggressive fighting for bush control. I think that if she starts to concede that, we can really see this lane just shove into tower. That means, yeah, J4 does potentially have access into these lanes, right? Could get off some early ganks. I think he has to be trying to mind game people, though.
Yeah.
Take some ganks that aren't good for his personal tempo, sack some jungle clear, and go for something that's just going to try and burn flashes, put pressure on them. If he can burn the flash of a Varus or a Lux early on, that's an easy repeat gank, especially once he gets to around level 4 or level 6, and you have the threat of Cataclysm on your side.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a tough one. I mean, already we see this top lane matchup. Another thing to look at is instead of teleport actually taking Ghost, Raven aren't really looking to play through these team fights, not necessarily win through split pushing this time. Gonna have a lot more danger or kill threat in lane against this set too. So especially with both junglers pathing from bot to top, it's gonna be a bloodbath in the top lane.
Yeah, and you see here the point about starting bottom lane for these junglers does slow down that early game for the bot laners themselves. They would like to see a bit more presence in the early game there, but leashing for their junglers, I mean, they're just trying to get them off to a good start. And here we see Jarvan, after the red buff, going up top lane. He knows Ravenart has been feeling himself, been getting the push on early, but it looks like he's indecisive.
Yeah, I would have really liked him to see him just walk around looking towards the other brush and then try to find an angle behind Olaf more. That would have almost certainly blew at least a summoner, maybe found a kill. But yeah, just a little passive, maybe worried about, as we saw before, how this Olaf turned around to gank early, worried about that.
Well, and now he's taking the Krugs, which means that I wouldn't be surprised if he gets double scuttled here by the Hecarim. There's no way he's going to be able to contest this topside scuttle, and it looks like he's going for the chickens. Echo here, engaging onto the Akali. The Akali with a great E. The Shuriken flip out and back in to get off a fantastic trade. And that's what you were talking about previously, that this Akali really does like these melee matchups a fair bit more than she did something like Cassiopeia.
Oh, could be some action here in the mid lane. A big health advantage here for Kimberly, but will it matter with the engage? We'll find out in a second. It's happening. Okay, big stun there. That might actually be first blood. Huge kill there for the Echo. That is a massive find.
And that's just the power of Jarvan with an assassin, right? If he lands that knockup on top of the fantastic convergence timings we've been seeing from the Echo to land his stun, it is spelling doom for anyone that encounters them on the Rift.
Yeah, I'd be looking for this the Echo Jarvan to be running around this map, especially after that first blood, really trying to look for some bigger advantages. And as you talked about, though, this looks like a rough top lane matchup.
And you can see the repeat gank here mid, once again landing the standard in like
EQ combo.
the transcendent convergence on top of one another. It's mind-boggling how much pressure they're going to be able to get on this mid lane. And J4, if I was him, I'd go back, I'd buy, and I'd start running back toward mid lane right now. He didn't get the flash, which is really what he wanted. They tried to play patiently around that Shroud, but it is going to be all about how much he can get for this Echo.
Yeah, and now we're sitting in chat saying Jarvan going bot. Obviously, got the big push there. The other side of that, though, is you got the first blood on the Echo. If you can get pushed, then you can start making plays towards bot, forcing them back, and maybe even finding push for your bot lane, and then getting Dragon. So there's a lot of different angles they could choose here, although it would appear that very much so this bot lane is in need of some help.
And here's Leafwing being very smart in his pathing, understanding that, hey, my bottom lane, super pushed up against this J4, right? That gives me an opportunity to go in, potentially contest some of these camps, and even if he doesn't get the Gromp there, he still gets vision.
Yeah, at the very least, and spotting out a Jarvan in the early game is absolutely huge, especially when you have the farm advantage. Just matching another jungler can be so powerful, even if you're not making anything happen yourself. Just running around the jungle and looking the other guy in the face and knowing where he is at all times can stop this early game pressure that Jarvan is so well known for.
And it looks like here they're just calling to get off a reset for the Echo, spend some of that hard-earned first blood money, hopefully get him back into the lane with something like, Hex Tech Alternator. No, actually going for the early ring buy. Okay, so.
Yeah, it's different. I know for a lot of picks, like Echo, in the jungle, where typically in mid lane you'd be going Alternator, you would go the Blasting Wand because it makes more sense for clearing. It gives you a faster clear. It's just more efficient as far as the stats that it's giving you. But in mid lane, having that health with the Hextech Alternator is really nice. On the other hand, though, if you're trying to snowball, there's no better item than Dark Seal.
Yeah, so Dark Seal plus the Blasting Wand coming out here, and maybe we'll see an early buy into something like a Nashor's.
Yeah, I'd be looking towards probably Lichbane this game. I mean, it's all preference at the end of the day because the DPS from Nashor's is huge and it's fantastic for snowballing. But we're still a ways away from that. What do you think the next move is here for both teams?
Looking at the way Hecarim is pathing here, it seems like he's constantly wanting to be inside the jungle. We see the Shuriken flip coming down. Hecarim there with the Onslaught Shadows. Fantastic timing on the Chrono Break with pulling the Q back through. I mean, just an excellently played way to get out of that fight. Had to burn both summoners, but like at the end of the day, keeping your life, being able to sustain through that, using your Corrupting Pop to be able to clear this wave. Do we have a super minion wave? I mean, a cannon minion wave. No, we don't. So he's going to try and stick it out one more wave probably before recalling.
Yeah, just a matter of this top lane. We talked about the matchup again. We seem to be panning up here often. How do you think that you can leverage this Olaf early? Because it seems like this set is perfectly fine with just being pushed under his turret all game and, just grabbing as much farm as he can.
At this point, we could see Olaf either go for a solo Herald or just pull up the Hecarim for the Herald. We do see Jarvan finally going bottom, catching them unawares, but also a little apprehensive about pulling the trigger on that. They may not be sure where the Hecarim is and a bit timid about just all-inning on this with the potential for Hecarim and Akali to collapse.
Yeah, both sides here, I feel like both sides kind of showing nerves this game 3. Really going to
Samira
take...
is out of this play.
Oh, yeah. This is tough. A really fantastic
She cannot walk that
setup.
way.
Okay.
You cannot go there.
Yeah.
That is illegal.
A little bit of a blunder
Straight
there.
to jail.
They might be able to find something, though. Big Cataclysm coming out. He is exhausted. Echo running back now, just trying to find the way out of the horse, but finding another kill. And, yeah, this is doomed from the start. Samira just completely out of position. Very good objective setup by Kimberly there, and, man, did they take advantage.
I have no clue what spirit possessed Samira there, but my goodness, you cannot just walk right by the Lux Varus into the river there. You have to take the long way around in life at that point. There is no shortcut there for you. That was straight to gray stream.
That is tough. Not much more to say about it. Once again, we talked about nerves. Both sides have shown it now, where both apprehensive about ganks, just trying to find their way into fights that maybe they cannot in any world find. And it's going to be tough for the Samira to get back into the game, being a champion that wants to capitalize on early games.
Well, and that kind of sacks the advantage that you had from the Echo in the mid lane here. You know that Olaf is just going wild underneath the turret now of the set, but he gets too greedy.
Well played there by the set, but yes, definitely a misplay from the Olaf. I think he had a little bit more damage and healing from the Vamp Scepter and the Doran's Blade. I'd be looking for a little bit of a kill here in the mid lane. Does get some damage off. Probably going to force a reset. So finds that advantage. Will likely look towards the Rift Herald, but yes, I mean, that was definitely a tough play there for the bot lane and for the top side of Kimberly too, because as we talked about, one kill could really swing this this lane either way.
Yeah, Jarvan a bit short on that flag and drag, but you like to see the attempt, and I want to see more of that from him here. He has the potential to really sway some of these matchups with a good engage. Once again, going in, trying to burn summoners, putting pressure on the map. Akali taking the Shuriken, flip back in with the Shroud. Can she pull something through here? The perfect execution coming out, but unable to really capitalize on anything.
A decent attempt by both sides. Something to look for, Jarvan. A little mechanic that it seems like might not be aware of is you can EQ and then flash when you're in that flag and drag combo. So if you do initially miss, you can get a little bit of extra distance, although it is very precise. So we'll see now. Definitely a kill here coming out from the bot side. This is why you pick the Varus and the Lux. Just so much pick potential, as you talked about before.
Yeah, and this is one of those situations where they're now at a point where if they get hit by a Lux binding, either Samira or Janna, they need to start expending everything to survive.
Yep.
Varus is very close to having that Rage Blade. He started Cole and already has a lane advantage. That does not bode well for the side of Moho.
Yeah, you still, despite the first kill up here in the top lane, you still have to be careful up here too of the Olaf. Constantly a kill threat, and now so much gold here. I mean, every plating now taken. They've essentially been able to free push this entire game. I think this is the point where Jarvan really needs to take a look at the bot lane and try something.
And we talked about the advantage of the Olaf on that top side being able to constantly have the push. Yes, he did give up that kill. Bit of a boneheaded play. Not the end of the world. We know he still has a massive advantage in the way that he's approaching this lane. But the key thing that we talked about is getting Herald controlled. And they did do that. Leafwing was actually able to grab the Herald while Jarvan and Echo weren't able to capitalize on their dive in the mid lane on Akali.
Yeah, how do you think they're going to try to use this Echo a little bit more? Because you found that early advantage. You still do have a kill and assist, but Mythic now completed. What's the next move for Echo? Oh, wait, hold on. We actually have a dive threat.
Once again, Olaf, like, Ravenheart is very content to just eat those haymakers right in the face.
Yep.
Like, if he would sidestep those, these trades would not be nearly as close. They need to start moving the Echo around the map. For some reason, he's content to continue to queue the wave in mid lane with those time winders and then just sit there, right? He needs to queue the wave, clear it, and then begin to threaten. Go into Fog and Port. Even if he doesn't actually shift to another lane, just the threat of not being visible adds to his presence in this matchup.
We might be seeing a little bit of that here, finally taking advantage of that overpush bot lane, knowing that there's potentially vision in, is that Pixel Brush? I don't remember exactly what the name of it is, but not knowing that the Tri-Brush has that control ward. It might just not be enough time, though.
This is what they need, though. They need to try and make a play here as their top laner is so vulnerable. Herald coming down. It looks like they're afraid to actually dive the set, even though he's lacking his ult.
And Flash, yeah.
And Flash, yeah. It really feels like, you know, maybe they just thought the Haymaker would be too much damage mitigation for them to risk it.
It is a lot. It is very difficult to dive set. Oh, really big engage here. It's big, but a lot of commitment there going in. Old Croc trying to find just something in this lane. We talked about having the advantage, but that is completely dissipated at this point. He has first Mythic. He might actually have lethal here with the ultimate. He cannot quite take it, but still, will likely force a reset, or could still go in for a dive here if he really chose to.
Yeah, Old Croc has to just back off here, and it looks like that's exactly what he's going to do. I'm really disappointed that Moho got a little bit scared by walking over a control ward in the tri-bush down there. I think that at that point, with the resources that you've invested, as well as the knowledge of where the enemy top laner and jungler are, you 100% force the issue there and at least try to get some summoners out of the bottom lane of Kimberly. Now they're in a position where they're going back, they're trying to start this Drake, trying to equalize that, and they have caught the Kimberly bottom lane behind the times here.
Yeah, they might actually be able to find opportunity for the Dragon here. Akali does have a pretty good angle, but no, they're just going to burst it right down. This time, Samira knowing exactly where not to be, walking right with her team, maybe looking for an engage on Old Croc here. Cataclysm comes out. No Cirque Flip, no nothing to get out of this one, but they just don't have the damage. Turning around now on this Varus. Not much coming from there either, as you see Hakram just immediately run over, picking up the kill. Flag and Drag will find one. There we go, getting the assist. And big ult there, getting the tower shot as well. Not quite able to find him. That guy's too quick.
You know, that was really the first time all series we've seen a teleport come out from the top laner from either team trying to, you know, salvage a fight or potentially eke out an advantage for their squad. I think we see why they're so reluctant to do so, right? He teleports in. He helps with that back end of the fight to make sure that they secure a kill. But in exchange, his top turret goes down. and that's now a 20 CS deficit up there.
Yeah, very tough. So many platings here given up by the side of Moho on both lanes now. They do have that big advantage in the mid lane, but they took maximum tower plates from both the top and bot lane. That is the gold advantage that you're seeing right now. That 3,000 gold is all from the huge advantages to turrets.
Well, and the CS advantages in the top and bottom lane.
yeah.
Once again, the point of power.
Oh.
Fantastic binding.
Very, okay. Well played there by the Janet. Gets a very good NATO off. Able to salvage that one. And now Leafling has found himself in a bit of a weird spot. Really good blast cone. Will probably be able to just
Calculated.
glance away. Yeah, calculated. Right?
Not even close.
Oh, and this one I noticed just now that we talked about last game. The Triforce coming out on the Hecarim. Do you feel like that's the correct itemization into this team comp?
I think it does give him a bit more bruiser potential here. I wonder if he'll go into more of those tanky items, follow it up with something like a Deadman's or a Sterix. Not quite sure. I know that some people in chat have pointed out Shojin and Muramana being extremely effective, that Hecarim doesn't really need to buy a Mythic in the current meta. Not really sure what his game plan is from here, but it looks like we're going to have to see him adapt and try and make himself at least a bit tankier to withstand these engages. I think for him, he doesn't quite have the same level of dive buddy that we saw the previous Hecarim have on the side of Moho with the 14 kill Echo. So probably setting himself in a position where he just wants to be able to have a little bit more tankiness to sustain through these prolonged encounters.
Absolutely. Back when we saw the dreaded chem tank meta back a couple seasons ago, in the aftermath of that, we saw a lot more bruiser, but now might be looking for a fight here. Old Croc is in a really awkward position, is just going to be able to flash away, although we see the mid laner of Moho Esports looking for a kill. He will find it. Really good pick there. Picks himself up a couple of Darksteel stacks. But, as I was saying before, there's a lot of Divine Sunder, and then you'd find a lot of Black Cleaver, which is an incredibly strong item right now, so I would definitely expect to see him slotting into either that or a Death Stance coming forward.
Yeah, and the Black Cleaver can definitely help him stick on the targets a bit more. Speaking of sticking on the targets, we see Ravenart land one overtow and just like blood in his eyes, going straight for the Set here on the side of Moho. Wow. And while Set is doing everything he can to prolong this encounter, there's no way he can deal with Olaf in those just long, drawn-out fights. Yeah,
it does force out the Ghost, which is nice, but at the end of the day, you never want to be giving up a kill to an Olaf. We found that out in the very first game that we played here. Talking about some rotations that have been made, though, I do like how Kimberly moved their bot lane up to grab that Herald and now have moved it mid, as they have the most push in the game. This bot lane pushes incredibly fast, and able to put pressure on this mid tower is going to be a point of power for them.
In case you blinked, Varus now has Kraken Rageblade at 19 minutes.
That's quite the advantage.
It is so doomed if you're the Collector Samira on the other side. Like, I have no clue how Samira even plays this game right now.
It is very tough. The nice thing about Samira is you always have the opportunity to find these miracle engages. Obviously, you do have the Cataclysm from the Jarvan. You do have the Showstopper from the Set. Both very good engage tools if in the right position that you can follow up on. Just a matter of getting there. And Collector, as we talked about, even if you do put yourself in the right position, you might just not have the damage to complete the play.
Yeah, we're just looking at a champ here in the Samira, though, who has very little wave clear, so she can't really match the mid lane shift. And, okay, here we go. An
big
engage.
Fight coming in. Okay, now we see the Cataclysm on the backside. Leafwing is stuck within the walls, but so is the Janna, finding herself in a very awkward position. Varus pumping out so much damage. They're on the run now. It looks like Jarvan will escape. It looks like Echo will escape. Maybe Undertow barely misses, but they find themselves in a very awkward position. Now, Akali flanking. She might not actually be able to handle the two of these if they have enough damage, but no, being in the Shroud is just too much. Old Croc picking up his second. And that is a big swing.
Old Croc loves the bite off a bit more than he can chew, but there we saw him be able to land the whole thing in his mouth. Here, you feel really bad to see the Jarvan miss the standard on the flag, and that ended up costing him his life. But they were really just not in a position to contest. They need to stabilize on the side of Moho. They're down what's going to be around 7,000 gold, 6.5 to 7,000 gold at this point in time. Let Echo go split. This set engage is going to be able to maybe pick them up something, but it's so hard. There is no follow-up. You have a Samira with a Collector and a Dirk. Meanwhile, on the other side, that Varus is probably going to go back and buy at least 2/3 of another item.
Yeah, I would definitely expect something like Blade of the Ruined King, maybe a Runon's Hurricane coming in next, both outputting just an obscene amount of damage, honestly. It's too much for this Samira at the moment. Samira picking up another Dirk, though. What would that be building into, do you think?
Honestly, I have no clue. It maybe a Ghost Blade after the Collector. I
was thinking Duskblade, maybe.
Or Duskblade. If they're going for a Mythic with a lethality build like this, really baffling to not see more of going for things like Bloodthirster and Shieldbow so that she actually has a chance to get into this fight and heal up. We know that she has immense sustained damage once she's in the fight, and from all the different targets she can proc lifesteal off of, can become almost like a drain tank ADC to a certain extent, but it looks like she's opting to go for some kind of one-shot build here, and I'm not sure what they'll be able to get off of that. It has to be an amazing flag and drag into Echo, into Samira, both collapsing on the same target, and then them resetting and hoping to get another pick off of that. But there's no way they can have an engaged
very good
fight.
find there by the Tendrils of Corruption, picking up the kill. That is the only front line down. That actually does hurt a ton when you're looking at going into an objective fight. Set does have fantastic follow-up.
Yeah, and we're pointing out on the side in the chat here, Olaf, Borkrush, Hecarim, Triforce, not the tankiest frontline on the side of Kimberly, so there are opportunities to pick off any of these members legitimately. However, they don't have the vision to do so, and Old Croc, we see once again snapping at these fools in their own jungle, unable to get the steal there, and now Kimberly, they smell blood. They are not afraid here to collapse on this Samira, and where do Moho salvage this game now? They're down 10,000 gold at 23 minutes after an amazing game 2, after an extremely close game 1. It looked like this was anyone's series. In fact, we probably favored Moho going into this third game based on what we had seen from their drafts time and time again. But it looks like they were figured out here, and the adaptations came through from Kimberly.
Yeah, it's hard. It's probably a mixture of those adaptations and just comfort. I suspect just by, and obviously I'm kind of looking into it a little bit here, but with the speed at which they locked in the rest of those champions, it was pretty clear that they had done this. This was their comp. They're playing their comfort, and now we're just showing that this is just what they do on their comfort picks.
Tendrils go wide there on Varus, but honestly, the cooldown's so low, he's not sweating it. Meanwhile, Moho getting a much-needed pick onto the Hecarim there. Leafwing sort of in no man's land. You were not allowed to be there, sir. You did not have your papers, so we're going to have to see him kind of go back to start. But it's going to be a situation here where I don't know if Moho really has the tools to prolong this game much further. We're 2 Drakes away from Soul, so realistically, around another 8 minutes until we get that crucial point of power on the map. But, I mean, between another Baron spawn, between those 2 Drakes, can Moho continue to wave clear with Echo, Set, and Samira? It feels really dubious at best. They have to hope that Kimberly, honestly, gets a little bit too big for their britches.
And to be fair, we've been seeing a lot of that from them. They have to take advantage of when there's an overstep. When, for instance, like when we just saw, when Leafwing oversteps, you need to punish. When you see the Akali go a little bit too far, you have to punish. You just need to take these little advantages until you can find your opportune moment where hopefully there's just that one window that you can capitalize on with this engage comp to find something. I do think it's really good where this gold has been as far as on the Echo, because it seems like this person, the mid laner, is very proficient on the champion, knows how to team fight on it, and that's usually the issue with these assassin picks, is finding correct position and team fighting. And here we go.
We are Bounty Gaming.
Yep, exactly. Very good play there by Moho. It's exactly what they need to do. The teleport is not ideal, although now you see the engage come down. It's going to be a very tough game to win from here. Looks like just getting out, honestly, would be ideal. They do grab the dragon, don't opt to turn. Just getting a little bit of poke with that rocket belt, seeing if they could find anything with that damage, but walking away. That's best case, honestly.
Yeah, and this is where you just have to learn to take what you can get at this point in time. They are begging for table scraps here. We need to see, Moho be more content to do things like, oh yeah, let's give third Drake and hold our TP and get a bounty tower, because honestly, that's advantageous for them. Now, Hextech Drake is immensely powerful, potentially the most powerful Drake in the game, but you are far too gone to be worrying about that. That's a future you problem. Right now, you need to just get gold in your pockets and avoid dying.
Okay, found out in the top lane. Set needs to get out of here, but with the Ragnarok, with the Undertows available, he just using the showstopper, trying to find something. Gravenar picking up another solo kill in the series. Where can you look next? I feel like you have to go for some sort of like bush cheese. You need to play around this Echo somehow.
Yeah, you have 3 sweepers on the side of Moho. That's a great opportunity for you to create some blind spots in the map.
Here we are.
The convergence onto the Olaf with the follow-up from the Flag and Drag. That's exactly what they need, and the money goes to the right person. You can trust Echo. Moho Esports 26 going to be able to carry this game if he gets enough gold in his pocket, but he has so much ground to cover. Yes, he's ahead of Old Croc on Akali, but we know Kimberly isn't playing around Old Croc. All of their stocks are in this Splashba Empress bottom lane. 9, 1, and 13 from the two of them. 850 gold in bounties combined. This bottom lane is going to be a problem each and every time these two teams clash around these objectives.
Absolutely. On the other side of that, though, that is almost the exact people who you'd want to be targeting every fight. So having the bounties on them, that's already who we're trying to kill. If we can get rewarded twice fold for doing what our comp is supposed to do, that's not a terrible position when you're looking at team fighting. So even just, sure, we might have lost, if, say, a Baron fight breaks out. Sure, we might lose Baron, but if we pick up, say, 1,500 gold worth of kill and shutdown, that's really big for them.
Yeah, now, the looming threat here is the lack of vision they can really exert, right? That's the double-edged sword that is having so much sweepers. But we see a Flag and Drag here, very ambitious, has to flash out. That means that contesting Baron once it spawns does get a little bit more dubious for Moho Esports here. Jarvan will be able to get in the pit to contest a Baron take. He will not be able to get out. He will pay the iron price for that one. On the flip side, we see Set pushing down on the bottom lane, continuing to try and pick up bounties. This is good. This is exactly what they need. More gold into their pockets, clawing this back, 7,000 gold down. We know that as this time moves on in the game, that 7,000 gold becomes less and less consequential. Baron take extremely fast from the side of Kimberly because you have that on-hit Varus, able to shred objectives. Getting the push, though, from Echo, and now Hecarim taking those chickens right out from the Jarvan. The finger-licking good there, but Jarvan is just on the run, but oh my goodness, Set picks up 2 bounties in the bottom lane. My boy is eating good. You know what? If he dies here, that's fine.
I think you could live with that if you're the Set player here. Perfect execution. Shuriken Flip does come through. Showstopper's back in. He has a full Haymaker, but it will not matter. Splashba has too much damage. Now you find a Hecarim kind of out of place. The horse is out of the pasture. Does end up going down to the Echo here. That's another 2 Darksteel stacks.
This whole string of events is honestly as good as it gets for, Moho and the Colonel here in the bottom lane picking up those 2 towers. Like, it doesn't get much better than, okay, we got 2 bounty objectives. We got the push on mid lane, which slows down their Baron push immensely. And then we get a kill in the back half because Hecarim got caught with his hand in the chicken bucket again. Like, yeah, we'll take that every single time.
Well, with the Colonel's secret formula, it's really hard to stay away from those Raptors on the map when it's looking that juicy.
I mean, for real, they are doubling down on every single camp that they see, and they're paying for it. But the prices are this good, you got to keep them coming. And now we're getting into the river, and this Drake is going to be make or break. It looks like Kimberly might be content to just kind of flip it. Set can teleport
Lots of pings down by the dragon.
But there's no way. I think Olaf actually takes the inhib and maybe a Nexus Tower if Set leaves this.
Okay, we do see the Miracle engage. He gets the shutdown. That is exactly what you needed. Perfect engage. Ravenheart may take him down the other side, but this is a 4v3 at the Dragon. They sure do have the Baron buffs, but will that matter? You saw how much damage the Echo just put down.
It's a ticking time
It's gonna
bomb,
be
though.
tough.
The inhib is going down.
Will
he
they be
has the Baron wave.
Will they be trading the Dragon for the Baron or for the base here? Massive shutdown again, just handing away this free gold, looking for the steal. Does find it. Dragon's Soul going to be going over to Kimberly, but that is a massive, massive gold swing. And now we got the Samira picking up a kill, one step closer towards what I can only assume is a mortal reminder. But Ravenheart taking his half out of the middle there in the top lane.
Samira is on the board, but at what cost? We see Olaf plunder the base. An absolute Viking raid there. Unfortunate for Moho Esports 7 on the J4. They're not able to pick up the timely smite. Here, he is not in a good position. This is a classic situation for Jarvan where you go in and you can't go out that easily. Luckily, the Flag and Drag cooldown is just short enough to get him out of that fight, but man, brutal. The smite on the cannon.
It is very tough. The loss of the Dragon there is rough, but you do find about, once again, 15 to 1,700 gold worth of kills onto the Echo, who buys himself a Medjai's. He's going for it, and I respect that.
Yeah, and see here in the chat, a bit of questioning of the Bills, and honestly, I agree about the set. Like, set with Hullbreaker here, why not? Like, this dude is not going to contribute in the team fights. This is what we talked about in the champ select. Ragnarok completely takes out the showstopper.
Wow, actually baiting out the Chronoplasm there. Or Chrono Shift, I don't remember. Baiting it out, whatever it is, the ult, it was pretty nice there. I mean, Ultcrack finding a nice little advantage.
Now, the problem is it is already halfway toward being back off cooldown, but Echo does need to play with a bit more fear for his life. He does have the stopwatch, but using that would be so critical right now. They might be able
to find something here in this 2v3. Does instantly kills
That's
the
pickup on the
Varus.
splash
That
buff.
is massive. Does actually get traded back onto by Lux, but hey, that makes it a lot harder for them to immediately end the game.
And we are just seeing the classic Echo gameplay here, where at a critical moment, he makes a huge play, and what does he not have? The ultimate. What does he not use? The stopwatch.
That's very tough. I mean, it's hard to say if the stopwatch would have truly saved the play, but as I talked about before, oh wow, we've actually just seen the end here.
Yeah, the problem is the Samira is an absolute non-factor. Set is doing his best here. Janna going to try and heal and shield as much as she can, but I mean, that push in the top lane by Olaf earlier is paying dividends.
Yep, and here we go. Now the one-man contest. He's standing on the hill, but he goes down. That will be game 3 going to Kimberly, and Kimberly will be seeing in the finals now.
And Kimberly absolutely taking no prisoners in that one. Yes, Splashba does get shut down at the end. But hey, I think trading your life for the enemy Nexus, always worth. You know, that's when you go in the all chat at the end. You just say worth, and then you alt F4 before the Nexus even explodes. A fantastic showing from Kimberly. We were worried about their mental. How much would they be able to recover after that crushing Game 2 loss? Because that game got out of hand very quickly. And we were questioning, can you give Moho their Echo? Because we saw how much he was able to control the game. But a couple of critical decisions, right? The takeaway of the Hecarim, swapping over to blue side, grabbing that on first pick, and then continuing the trust that Akali into Echo is better than Akali into Cassiopeia. So, hey, love the fact that they stuck to their guns. They continued to understand where their win con was, focusing on getting Ravenheart that Olaf and having him run over the game, continuing to let Splashba and Empress do their thing in the bottom lane, stack those Drakes. They had a great time stacking those in games 1 and 3 with a crucial steal there at the end by Leafwing, who, despite our criticism of him on the Warwick, was fantastic on this Hecarim, doing what he needed to do to clutch up this win. So all in all, fantastic play by both teams this series, and kudos to Kimberly for making their way to the championship.
Absolutely, yeah. It's very good play. They absolutely did not leave any question of who should have won that last game. We did see, as you talked about, a 23-minute game in Game 2. There was questions. I would have taken Moho in Game 3 just based on what we'd seen before, but a little bit of, it seems like faltering in the draft, and then just having that tough early game, giving Varus that many kills, and the Samira just not panning out. That was really the nail in the coffin for him.
Yeah, but here we see Kimberly, you're coming in as the #1 seed. You have the target on your back, and by all means, you accomplish your goal. You punched your ticket to finals, and we'll see them here coming up real soon on the mainstream against the winner of the other side of the bracket. So really excited to see how that pans out, and we'll have to see if Kimberly here, focusing on their strong side lane play, can finish the job.
Absolutely. Very excited to see that, and we will on this stream soon enough. Just for now, if you'd mind following all Carthage Esports socials, it'd be greatly appreciated. We post some pretty cool stuff every now and then, you know, when the games are, so that's important. But for now, we'll see you at finals.
See your future on the horizon? So do we.
It's really just the greatest college experience I could have asked for.
What really drew me in was having an adventure.
I think something really unique about Carthage is that it constantly pushes you outside of your comfort zone.
At Carthage College, we will push you to dive deep, to channel your curiosity, and excel in your chosen field.
It's been like an individual journey through collaborative effort. And so overall, this has been my college experience, but so many people that I've met have been supportive along the way, and they're all looking out for you. So that's really why it feels like a family.
As you ignite your true potential and start asking the hard questions, you'll find the answers are just the beginning. That's the moment your purpose comes into view.
We are really able to get great one-on-one action with our professors. So you can't hide in your classroom. You're always actively participating.
You'll get recommended for things that you might not have ever been interested in before, and you end up realizing that that might be your passion.
Everyone here is just so nice, so welcoming. It's really easy to make friends here at Carthage. The biggest change was going from student to young business professional.
I love Carthage.
It's definitely the people.
Living on the lake is amazing.
I feel very prepared for my future.
Ended up surpassing my expectations.
Some things you just need to see for yourself. Come take a closer look at Carthage College.
My father told me when I was young, don't play with fire, be careful, son. But we were flames that fell in love.